Chance, are you Harry? That's too much information.
No, man.
Is it shave time?
No, it's Podblast time! That's right, it's Podblast time. This is your weird, informative, and hopefully fun show about memories of days gone by as we forge ahead together in the game of life. We've got a good one for you today. Steve Harvey would say at the beginning of Family Feud. I have a couple of really great guests that I want to tell you about really quickly. So let's begin with that. If you've ever lived in or visited Los Angeles, California, then you know Fritz Coleman as an on-air personality and weatherman who worked for NBC Channel 4 KNBC in Los Angeles, California from 1982 until 2020. He's also a stand-up comedian and has been for decades. And later in the show, I'm going to play some of his stand-up comedy for you. And Fritz also has a podcast called the Media Path Podcast. Fritz's Media Path podcast partner, Louise Palanker, is also here live today. Louise is a writer, director, producer, filmmaker, author, photographer, comedian, musician, and songwriter, teacher, and the co-founder of the Premier Radio Networks, which is now a division of iHeartMedia. Easy for me to say. They are both here live, so let's bring them on right now. Welcome to the Podblast, Louise and Fritz.
Hi,
Chance.
my man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
I know, man. I've been trying to book you for a long, long time through your agent, and we finally
apologize.
made it happen.
We apologize. I think a couple of those times were my fault.
No.
Feeding the medical industry in the last couple of months, and so we had to make some cancellations and stuff. I apologize.
No need to apologize, sir. I'm just glad you're here. Applause, applause, applause. And as I said in the brief introduction of you both, you have a very, very slick, funny, and very informative podcast called the Media Path Podcast, obviously, which you started in 2020 that I mentioned a moment ago. I must ask, when did you two meet, and whose idea was it to begin podcasting together?
We met before the idea of podcasting was a twinkle in any technician's eye. Fritz was doing a one-man show near me that I went to see, and we met there, and we've kind of hit it off and started working together, sharing ideas. We have a lot of commonalities, and we've sort of, Fritz and I intertwine in each other's lives and in each other's projects for the past 30 years. So podcasting was my next adventure from Premier Radio. The next thing in radio is like, hey, you can make your own show in your own garage. And so I started doing that in about 2005. This is actually my 5th podcast. And I've just been kind of circling and, hovering and waiting for Fritz to retire so that he could podcast with me.
That's very cool. Excellent.
Yeah, Weezy has a great producing mind, and she produced a couple of my one-person shows, and we've always had fun exchanging enthusiasms for movies and books and cultural stuff. And then when I was working at NBC, I had a contract with them, and I wasn't allowed to do outside media projects. So the minute I was paroled from that contract, Weezy said, let's do a podcast and just talk about the stuff we enjoy, and we've been having a blast.
Excellent. That's pretty cool. That's a nice origin story. And you do a great job. You've had some fantastic guests. You just interviewed Jo Beth Williams. I'm a big fan of her work. And we'll talk about that moment in a little bit. But as I said, I'm going to play some of your audio, Fritz, that you did at the Improv and other high-profile establishments. And really, you are a Los Angeles royalty. And here on the show, the Nostalgic Podblast, I want to let people outside of the Los Angeles area who are not familiar with you get to know you and your story. And you were recently on Adam Carolla's podcast. Clearly, you fellas are longtime buddies and are comedy cousins.
Well, they used to have a show on K-Rock in this town, he and Dr. Drew Pinsky co-hosted a show called Loveline, where people would call up with actual intimacy questions and sexual questions and relationship questions. And they were the twofer. Dr. Drew would give them the medical explanation of things, and Adam Carolla would give them the snark, and they would invite me up there, and I would just be allowed to comment on whatever the proceedings were, not adding much of anything, just kind of being a color commentator. And that's how we got to know one another. And that was a long time ago. And now Adam is like an independent industry. So he was nice enough to have me on his podcast.
I remember that show. Yeah, that was an interesting and really hilarious show.
Yeah, yeah.
So before you retired in 2020, as I said, you were a weatherman on that NBC affiliate in Los Angeles, KNBC. And for my audience, a part-time co-host of mine named Tom Williams is a longtime and current director at the Weather Channel here in Atlanta. So there's that commonality, the weather. Now at KNBC, just before your tenure there began, Pat Sajak from the Wheel of Fortune game show was a weatherman on your TV station from 1977 until 1981 or so, before Merv Griffin chose him to replace exiting Wheel of Fortune host Chuck Woolery back then. Now, did you replace Pat Sajak on your station?
No, I was Pat Sajak once removed. Kevin O'Connell replaced Pat Sajak, and I replaced Kevin O'Connell. And Pat Sajak ruined it for the rest of us doing any outside projects, because he was doing the weather at Channel 4 and doing the Wheel of Fortune show at the same time. And then management came to him and said, you know, Pat, we think you're dividing your attention and energy a little too much. We think you need to concentrate on one area of your life. Thinking there's no way he's going to blow off the weather gig, because the news is the only show that never gets canceled. So Pat thought about it and said, oh, okay, I'll take the game show. So he took the game show and quit Channel 4, which was a huge financial mistake, because now he's making like $30 million a year or some insane thing. And so no, there was Pat, and then Kevin took his place, and then I took Kevin's place.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. And of course, Atlanta's own Ryan Seacrest is going to take over from Pat Sajak, who is, for those that don't know, he was a Vietnam War Army veteran as a disc jockey. But Ryan Seacrest starts in the fall of 2024 alongside Vanna White. So that's pretty cool.
And I used to do the weather on Ryan Seacrest's radio show in LA.
Oh, really?
So I knew him when he was in a lot lower tax bracket.
I'm going to ask you about someone. I want to know if you know. I'm sure you do. It's kind of a dumb question, but just for the layman, I'm going to just set that up a little bit. But was there ever an NBC affiliate gathering of weather people from other major or minor markets in the country that you recall, like a convention or a get together or a party?
There were conventions. The National Meteorological Society would have these conventions for weather nerds, and I never went to those because I'm not a licensed meteorologist. I am a BS artist. That's how I got the job. I was hired to do the weather from doing comedy. I was hired from the Comedy Store. The old news director at my station, Steve Antonetti, and his wife came down to see me. And I had talked on stage because I, like Pat Sajak, began my broadcasting career working for Armed Forces Network. I did both radio and TV. And I talked about being forced to do the weather in the Navy against my will, but not knowing anything about it. But the Navy didn't seem to care. And so just a little amusing 1-minute anecdote. And after the show, the news director came up to me and said, this is a weird question. Do you have any desire to come to Channel 4 and do some vacation relief fill-in weather for me? I have, Kevin O'Connell was the main weatherman, hadn't had a vacation in a year. And I was making $25 a night at the Comedy Store. And I said, you do remember on stage that I said, I don't know anything about weather. He said, that's fine. There's no weather in California. This will work out great. So I was offered an audition. I auditioned. I did the fill in for 2 years. And then I got bumped up to the main weather job. And the rest is broadcasting history.
Ba-dum-bum.
What's the
Yeah,
question? Did
showbiz
you ask me
history.
something like 10 minutes ago? I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
You did, but I was going to ask you about some other people that I'm pretty sure
Oh,
you
okay.
work with.
Please do. No, to answer your question, no, we never had. Every
That's okay.
affiliate was different, and because I was hired from the Comedy Store, real meteorologists hated me, so I would avoid interacting with them at any time.
I wasn't going to go there because I did a lot of homework on both of you, and I noticed you were a meteorologist, and I don't judge. That's not a big deal. I don't care about that. But
Oh,
anyway,
please
you brought it
judge.
up, so. But my question was, so you wouldn't know. I was going to throw some names at you from our NBC affiliate in Atlanta, WXIA, Johnny Beckman, Paul Osman, Guy Sharp. Those names mean nothing to you then. Okay.
Precisely.
But here's a name that you do know.
God bless them if they're employed. I suppose.
Unfortunately, two of them are no longer on this earth. Guy Sharp
okay.
and Johnny
Well,
Beckman, but they were like you in the Atlanta market. They were beloved weather people. Am I correct in assuming you work with the sports reporter Fred Rogan at KNBC?
Yes. Yes.
Now, a lot of people in the audience remember him. He had a funny sports blooper show, kind of like Marv Albert's shtick, like 30 some years ago. It's called Rogan's Heroes.
Exactly.
And I know Fred from 2008 and 2009 just as a contestant on the Game Show Network. He was on a show called GSN Live. And of course, I watched him on the national level doing sports for NBC and early today. But yeah, he knows me. He's a character.
He did the Olympics. He did Olympic boxing for like 15 years.
He did curling. Yeah, he covered of all events curling.
And curling too. Yeah. You know, in excess of a dozen people used to watch Olympic curling, and Fred delivered it like it really mattered. You know?
Are you kidding me? Curling is awesome.
No, I know it is.
See brooms in action like in a curling match.
Really.
I like curling.
Fred
too.
and I worked together for 40 years. Fred was there longer than I was. He retired at 43 years. I retired at 40 years.
Wow. And so you guys got along?
Yes.
Okay. A little hesitation there. I'm just kidding.
No. It was not sibling rivalry, but we were like two brothers. And after a while, we just got bored with one another. But he's a good man. He's funny and entertaining. He works hard. Although he's retired from TV, he still has a sports radio show at iHeartRadio, and he's doing great.
Yeah, I like him. Well, Louise, I'm bringing you into the conversation. By the way, a little inside baseball. I had messed up the video. It's fixed now. No, we were live and everything, but it was just showing me, my ugly mug. Now I have it fixed. We're in the gallery view for what it's worth. So everything's good at my end. But Louise, I watched one of your movies that you directed, the documentary of one of my favorite groups, the Cowsills, that you also co-wrote and produced, titled Family Band, The Cowsill Story, which is streaming on Amazon Prime right now. So this
you can't really write a documentary.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You can write the voiceover that Bob reads so that it all pulls it all together.
But you do have a writing credit.
Yeah, because of that.
So I mean,
it's a homegrown movie. I wasn't sure which credits to give out and whatnot. We just kind of were on our own making a movie. And the way that we tied the whole story together was having it be Bob's story. So that I gave Bob and I a writing credit for having created that voiceover. So, but it's a documentary. It's real life.
I'll be honest with you. I got pretty emotional watching that. I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't seen it. It's 90 minutes long, but it's well worth your time. You'll learn a lot about that family. And they were the prototype for TV's Partridge Family, but they were real.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people know that. That might be remedial, but for those that don't, that's the absolute truth. So it's fresh in my mind, like I said, but my God, there's just so much to learn about that family that you packed into that 90-minute film. Must have been quite an experience to produce that.
Yes, absolutely. They were my teen idols. So imagine, whoever your teen idol was, imagine growing up and getting an opportunity to tell their story and to work with them. It's sort of that be careful what you wish for experience. So you better hang on. It's going to be a ride. And it was, and we just really felt like we were giving voice to a lot of people's childhoods who grew up as boomers with abusive parents. But in this case, they were in the spotlight. So they had to keep that smile on their faces, not just at church or on that Christmas card, but all the time. And they just were exemplary and so gifted. And I think it's a story that just resonates across generations.
Absolutely. Well said. Some of the things I learned was that Bill Cowsill was not only fired by his father from the band, but from the family as well.
You can't really fire your own kid. Also, you can't fire the guy who started the band. It's really just it's like a parental dominance kind of control move. And because half of the band were minors, they couldn't just walk off and say, screw you, dad. This is our group. They had 15, 14, 12, 10-year-old, 9-year-old people in the band. So it's a horror story. These kids were so talented, but they were at the mercy of a controlling parent.
Yeah, Bud Cowsill. He was like the Joe Jackson.
Exactly.
Well, he was with his boys in the Jackson 5, mean and abusive. Allegedly, got to throw that in for, any litigation that might happen to me. I'm just kidding. But look what happened to Britney Spears and her father. I mean, it just seems like it's not such a good idea to have parents managing their kids.
Well, when you're a professional as a child, you're pulling in money, and the primary responsibility of a parent is to raise a person who is going to be a fully functional, happy, connected, engaged, productive adult person for the 60 to 80 years they spend as an adult, and not to market them while they're in the middle of creating self. And so when your child is pulling in money, that money supersedes whatever development is supposed to be pouring into this child, enrichment and just acceptance and celebration of who they're becoming, this year, the next year, this month, the next year. What does she like to do? What is she reading? What's she interested in? None of that matters when you've got a performance that night. So it's the same for Britney Spears as it is for the Cowsills, as it is for the Jacksons. It's like, hey, we're responsible for the careers and the paychecks of all these adults that are rigging the lights and putting this production together. And it's no longer about, is your kid okay? Does she need therapy? Does she need a hug? So yeah, it's all backwards. Really, childhood. If you have a talented child, set up a garage where they can record their music and let them perform around town, but let them grow up. That's first and foremost what
Well said. Well said. I would like to stick up for Britney Spears in one sense. It seems like she has had some darknesses since early in her life, maybe a little depression. So it wasn't only the fact that she handed her life over to the wrong person, or it was a court-appointed overseer, but I think she had some, and it might be the syndrome she had. She was so hot. Corey, my middle child, Wheezy, was enamored with her, and she was a huge star at a very young age. That's unhealthy. But I also think she had some depressive stuff earlier in her life, which was kind of sad. I don't know her, but I've always had a tinge of sadness for her for some reason.
Yes, and you probably saw the recent video with the knives that made news headlines.
Dude, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, she's always had some negative publicity. I mean, she was like riding around on a lawnmower with her baby in her, or was it a car without a baby seat and without a
and shaved her head. She's got
yeah, in 2007. Yeah, that's the main one right there. Yeah, that's like a red flag that something might be off for sure. And just getting back to that documentary, yeah, it's so sad that despite earning upwards of $20 million, that all of those kids began their adult lives in debt. And with owing back taxes to the IRS. That's just so unfair that the money was mismanaged.
Correct.
Terrible. So, and then Susan Cowsill's home, I'm giving away all the secrets of your movie, but for those that don't know, this is really, really sad. Her home was wiped out during Hurricane Katrina, and then they lost Barry, their brother, in that tragedy.
Yeah.
After the storm hit on Monday, August 29th, 2005, and then Billy passed away a few days after. So you lost two of the male singers right then and there back in 2005. It's awful.
And they're very resilient and still performing. The last time Wheezy and I interviewed them, they were going on stage in about 10 minutes at Branson, Missouri. They're still cranking and they still sound fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. They tour every summer with the Happy Together tour with Turtles, Mark and Howard, and they're on the road every summer. So you just look for the Happy Together tour. They're probably coming near you and you'll get a chance to see them. And boy, they are just, a complete and total joy on stage to watch. So gifted.
I love their harmony. I love bands with good harmony. That's why I've been a Queen fan for years before
Yeah.
it was trendy with the
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody movie of
Mhm.
2019.
Oh yeah.
I just love the Cowsills music, and I always have. And I'm a fan of that old. You probably think it's cheesy, that Love American Style show. I have it on DVD season one. That's all they released was season one of the 5 seasons on home video. I guess it didn't sell too well, but
I'm
Paramount owns the rights.
I'm the last person to ask if something's too cheesy, because you're gonna have to go all the way to Lawrence Welk to get me to say, yeah, it's too cheesy.
With the bubbles, I love it. Oh wow! You know, I want to produce a documentary. You are inspirational, Louise. I want to produce one about the Atlanta dance scene, which was
Okay.
suggested to me by my friend Joe Bartlett. The West Coast swing is big here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that would make a really good topic. But that's besides the point.
I think that's a great, I'll tell you, Atlanta's turned out to be this huge, it's like one of the focal points of rap. Rap is so huge in Atlanta right now.
Yeah.
And the entertainment business, thanks to what's his name that moved a giant studio down there. And
Tyler Perry.
yeah, Tyler Perry. I mean, that's like a hot entertainment area now.
Yeah, So Def
You got
Records.
the Real
yeah.
Housewives of Atlanta. Come on.
Oh, I can't watch that, but yeah,
no,
you're right. It's hot though. It's getting ratings. It's doing well. People care to watch that.
It's why
But-
ISIS hates us.
Yeah, oh man, they say I don't like this expression. We're the Hollywood of the South in Atlanta, and that's because of the 30% tax incentives.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot going. I've worked in movies. I started as an extra, then I got an agent, did some stunt work. Big whoop. But I've been on a set. and seen
That's
how
a
it
right
works.
to work state, right? So they don't have to adhere to union regulations, so they can pay crew people less.
And they
Correct.
do. They are taking advantage here. I'm not talking about production companies. I'm not going to name names, but they always want a fresh face. I got screwed. I did a stunt with a squib, and you're supposed to get paid a certain amount of extra money, and I was denied that so they could have more money at craft services, I guess. But anyway. But yeah, I mean, I would like to join SAG-AFTRA, and I support the strike.
Yeah, they could use you walking in front of Warner Brothers with a sign in 110-degree weather right now.
Oh wow. So Fritz, I want to ask you,
Yeah.
what is the weirdest thing that you encountered as a weatherman on the air that you can talk about? Like, did an earthquake ever strike when you were on the air while you were alive?
Not when I
or-
was on the air, but I mean, by weird, if it can be weird but not amusing, the meteorological high points in my career, meaning when it really meant something, was when there's some sort of a catastrophe out here. We have these El Nino storms, and we have what are called Santa Ana winds, which stir up fires, and they're really bad. And although the weather is generally benign in Southern California, when we have those events, people really start paying attention to weather, because it can mean death and destruction, because the fires are ridiculous. And the El Nino storms can wash expensive homes into the water. So those moments are the ones that I will remember the most, because people are really paying attention to what you're saying. And other than that, between April and October, the California weather is morning clouds and fog, hazy afternoon sun, high in the low 70s. So my whole job is to think up new ways to say that. But the highlights of my forecasting career are those moments when, we're on the air for like 8 hours and you can't even get out of your seat and go to the bathroom because they just keep talking. It's interesting.
Are we in an El Nino or La Nina year, or none of the above?
We're in an El Nino year. That's the forecast this year.
Okay.
Which is for us in California. I don't know how it is in Atlanta. Means above normal rainfall and below normal temperatures.
I believe, and I'm certainly
Now,
not an expert.
again-
I think it's the same here too. It's about rainfall and higher quantity of rainfall than usual. But of course, you have
but
that
I
great
have to
dry
do a
heat.
disclaimer. I retired 3 years ago, so I no longer have my faux forecasting license. So if I turn out not to be true, please don't call me. Just look on your phone. You'll find whatever you need on there.
Well, the good thing about a podcast is that someone could be listening when it is in season, so it really doesn't matter.
That's true.
Although this will air on Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta this weekend, and in all the podcast platforms like Apple and Google. And I want to have people to get to know you guys, because you are true media professionals, and you're very seasoned and very accomplished. And I have great respect for you. I learned a lot about you when I was researching for this interview. So that's interesting. What you just described. Let's see. So Oh, by the way, I was going to mention I'm really glad that I guess it was God's will. Our interview together was postponed a few times because of things happening. You had personal appearances to make, and you had a family medical emergency. Won't go into details about that. But I'm kind of glad that we waited because I was going to interview you towards the end of the regular season of baseball, and I thought that your LA Dodgers and my Atlanta Braves will be battling it out in the playoffs. But sadly, both our teams did not advance. So,
Well, I'm
sucks.
just warning you ahead. Please don't start a conversation about baseball because I'll look like a fire hydrant sitting here not contributing anything. I don't know anything about baseball.
That's cool. No
Sorry.
worries, no worries. Louise, I wanted to catch your other film, one of your other films. We played marbles remembering a stolen childhood, about the lives of Holocaust survivors, but I lost a cherished friend on Friday the 13th of all days, 2023, at a home accident in a hot tub where she passed away in a hot tub. And so I was too depressed to watch it, but I will. And after I've seen it, I'd like to interview you again, if possible, to talk about that film.
Okay, I'm so sorry. How tragic.
It was a shock. She was with CNN and Ted Turner's company. She was a photographer, and she had two teenage boys in their formative years. And it was a shock because apparently, and it wasn't drug related, but apparently, I think I can say this. She had a little wine. She was with a couple girlfriends in her hot tub, and she was just in too long. And your blood vessels can be affected with that combination of
Really hot.
intense heat.
Oh, she may have passed out.
Yeah, she
Was-
passed out, and details are pending, but that looks like what happened.
Ugh.
So I was devastated. Beautiful lady. I'll hold up her picture in a minute. But yeah, anyway, so I was too depressed to do that part of the research of this interview, but I'd like to talk about that very serious subject with you at another time. I'm not trying to bring this normally happy nostalgia show down with that, but anyway.
Yeah, I have a few of my, the rest of my documentaries are all shorts or that one, and they're all on my YouTube channel, which is just at Louise Palanker, YouTube, YouTube handle at Louise Palanker. So I have my, We Played Marbles. I have a beautiful short that I made called Margaret Singer Seeking Light. And it's about an artist, a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
And it's just full of her art, and it's just bursting with life and her wisdom. So yeah, one of my passions is interviewing Holocaust survivors. I'm just so taken and struck by what they have endured and survived. And I think we have to remember that Germany was a completely civilized society when this devolved into absolute horror. And so we have to always remember what humans are capable in terms of lightness and dark, so that we can work towards the light, move together towards the light.
Yeah,
Well
we don't want to be doomed to have history repeat itself. Definitely not. Fritz, you acted in a supporting role in one of Raymond Burr's very last Perry Mason television films, The Case of the Telltale Talk Show Host, back in 1993, over 30 years ago. That's pretty cool. I'm going to look for that. I love Perry Mason.
Yes, sir. I was recognized by the Academy of Television Arts as one of the greatest moments in television history. I'll tell you why that whole thing came about. At that configuration of the Perry Mason show, they were doing these shows on NBC. It was like a movie night. Like once a week, they would do like a Macmillan and Wife, and then they would do something else, and they do a 2-hour Perry Mason. And because it was airing on NBC, NBC thought they would do some stunt casting, and they hired Fred Rogan and I to be irritating morning radio show hosts on this fictional radio show. The radio station in this story was owned by Regis Philbin. The other hosts on the show were Christina Ferrari, Montel Williams, Marriott Hartley, and who else? And that was it. And one of us killed Regis Philbin.
Oh,
We killed the general manager of the station. So as always happens in a Perry Mason episode, everybody in the whole thing, even extras, are suspect for a couple of minutes. And we had to go through the whole court thing. It was really cool. We went to Denver to shoot it because the production company Viacom had production company in Denver because Colorado's a right to work state and they could pay the crew less, as we just talked about.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. But he had one of his early bouts of kidney cancer, Raymond Burr had. So he wasn't doing anything on the set with the actors. What we would go and do our dialogue and pretend we were talking to Raymond Burr. We were talking to like a light stand or something. And then he would come in at the end of the day when everybody else had cleared the set, and he would do his dialogue to a teleprompter, which was an amazing skill because he could look right into the with a teleprompter, you're reading your lines, but he had the ability to look into that teleprompter and make it look like he was having a conversation with another human being. He was a master at that. And then they would cut the whole show together. He never acted with other actors in that show. And to this day, I've gotten over $1.50 in residuals from that show because it was 28 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, you'd have to be a real whiz to react to a monitor because you need that human interaction.
Well, that's exactly what he did. He was so good at it, and it was a cool experience. We had fun. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had fun.
Wow, because in all my acting classes I've taken, they say, no, you need to make eye contact. It's not about you. It's about your reaction to the other person. That's fascinating. Same thing with Fred McMurray on My Three Sons. In the old days, the golden age of television, Fred McMurray they'd film all of his scenes for various scripts, various episodes, all in one go in a couple of weeks so he could be freed up to do motion pictures.
Yeah.
And I heard that from Stanley Livingston himself. I've been involved with his daughter for many years, Samantha Livingston, and I heard a lot of tales from him about that.
Yeah, we had two of the brothers on our show talk to him. That was fun.
That's Barry. That's Samantha's uncle, Barry Livingston. Of course, the real brothers in real life, Stanley and Barry.
Had nothing but wonderful things to say about Fred McMurray.
Oh, God. Yeah, he was and all that film noir. I mean, he was known as a villain back in the golden age of Hollywood.
Double Indemnity. Come on, man.
Right on.
That was a great movie.
Let's see. What else did I have for y'all here? Oh, yeah. Here's a question for both of you. Who have you interviewed recently? And I realize you can't play favorites, but who were some of your best interviews on the Media Path podcast that you can talk about?
We play favorites all the time, Fritz. Yeah, we rank them. We give them a score every week. We have them at each other's throats. This is how we control. I'm going to say Robbie Benson was a treat because Robbie Benson. Okay, let's take a look at this guy for a second. Robbie Benson was a teen idol who was a movie star. Most teen idols were singers or in a group. How's this guy? People would see him once a year in a film. How's this guy? He was just so adorable. So yeah, we love
one of the most soulful and lovely human beings ever to enter the entertainment business. He goes into like a 3-minute monologue about how much he loves his wife that will give you goosebumps. He was just he's a very cool human being.
Very genuine.
So I agree with her. That's a good choice.
And then I'm also going to put up at the top Jerry Mathers and his mom, who came over. Yeah, they came over, and she remembers more about Leave It to Beaver than Jerry. We'd ask a question about an episode, and he'd look at his mom like, I was 7. I do not remember. And she, and she'd launch into it. So she's on top of it. Very cute.
I remember Robbie Benson in Ice Castles. That was a big movie. I'm a Gen Xer, and when I was a kid, all the girls loved that movie.
Oh yeah, that was the Notebook of its time. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Those are the formative years. That's. I just love that movie. Since this is going to date the show, but we're almost at Halloween 2023. Do you guys have any favorite scary movies, whether it's Universal Horror or just something to do with Halloween?
I don't like scary movies, and I don't like watching people in agony. I don't like what I call the torture channel, where you just hear people screaming. Like,
I'm not a fan of them because they always make me laugh. Like, oh, come on. But one that scared me to my soul was The Exorcist. That one freaked me out.
That's my number one of my list of the scariest movies of all time.
And they remade it, and it's tanking horribly at the box office.
Oh, yes. I saw that. As it should. Some things should not be remade.
Why would you do that? I know. Yeah.
And the book is even more freaky.
I never read it.
Well, I used to like those movies like The Omen, but as I get older and the mortality sets in, you know, I just feel like it's tempting fate. I don't want to wind up in the other place.
Good point. No, I don't
Like I mentioned earlier, Jo Beth Williams. Oh my gosh, I loved her and everything she's been in. The Big Chill, Poltergeist, of course. What a great guest that you had in a Jo Beth.
A really
Williams.
charming lady. She was quite lovely. Yeah.
And funny. And she's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. She looks great.
Yeah.
Have you noticed when people say she still looks good? It's always someone that never looked good that's saying that. You know what I mean? Some sexist fat guy or something. I don't know. Oh, I'm not shaming anyone that's overweight. I'm far from perfect myself.
I can't believe you did that. I weigh 350 pounds and I'm insulted.
Listeners, you need to go to the YouTube channel to see that he's lying. He does not weigh 350.
She was so lovely and young at heart, and it was fun talking to her about The Big Chill and Kramer versus Kramer, and you know, her perception of those iconic movies. It was fun.
In Kramer versus Kramer, wasn't she the other woman that Dustin Hoffman was involved with? Like, was it her rear end that we saw?
Yeah,
it looks like a full frontal from me Googling to find an appropriate shot that would depict what she doesn't. I guess she kind of like sneaks into the kitchen for a little bite, and then the little boy spots a naked lady in his kitchen, and they had to tastefully do that. And that was awkward for her. She said, because she recently ran into him at an event, and she knows that she's the first naked lady that guy ever saw. And he's now a full grown man.
Before the shoot, she went to the mother and the son and says, does he know what is coming in the scene? And so she kind of felt guilty and explained it to him. And she said it was all good. He was a cool little kid.
So it wasn't a double. It was really her. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she covers herself with her arms, but she didn't have a sheet or a dish towel to grab. I would have to rewatch the movie. I'm sure I don't remember being disturbed by it. So I think it's just part of what happens in life when daddy starts dating around. But, Meryl Streep had run off. Let's be fair here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Meryl Streep, I've met her on the set of a movie called The Homesman, directed by Tommy Lee Jones. And she's little. She looks like a big woman on screen, but she's not as tall as she appears to be. And did you know,
Did you meet Jesse Plemons on The Homesman? He was one of the actors in The Homesman. He's a friend.
No, because they filmed most of that in New Mexico. They only filmed about 3 or 4 days in a town just out of Columbus, Georgia. It was quite a hike for me. And I just played it. It was just an extra thing, but it was really cool, the costumes and the experience. And watching Tommy Lee Jones direct Meryl Streep, to watch that was priceless. You'd be like, Meryl, can I talk to you a second? And he didn't like any distractions on the set. There was like a little motor that was emitting smoke from a chimney at this town called Westville. It's a fictional Old West town. And he was getting irritated with the noise. He was like, can somebody cut that motor? And one of the crew guys says, but then the smoke will go. He goes, I don't care. I'd rather have no smoke than noise. And he also got irritated with the 3 standing women in the back of the stagecoach. He'd say, settle down, brother. He just didn't like any noise on the set.
No, I've heard from people, he's prickly to work with and prickly.
I've interviewed him. He's prickly.
The operative word being prick. No, I'm kidding.
No, it was like for the Ty Cobb movie, who was also supposed to be kind of a not nice. I don't know the tone of your, we're
uncensored, so you can let anything fly.
Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones wasn't any kind of like warmer than Ty Cobb. You had to kind of earn his trust.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that doesn't suffer fools well. I mean, he went to Harvard. He's smarter than everybody.
Yeah, he's smart. Yeah.
And getting back to Kramer versus Kramer, just some trivia. You guys probably know this, but Kate Jackson was supposed to play the role that Meryl Streep got, but because of her contract in Charlie's Angels, she was not freed up to do it. And that's why she quit Charlie's Angels. She was so upset that she didn't get the opportunity to play that role.
I'll tell you this, and I know Kate, because she dated a friend of mine. I think it would have tanked the movie to not have Meryl Streep in the lead of that movie. I just think it would have been a whole different ballgame there.
Meryl Streep just makes the whole world better.
Yeah. Some things are meant to be, and that was meant to be, that Meryl Streep. And what a remarkable actress, of course. I mean, hence all of her awards. And then you interviewed Dina from, I probably mispronounced her name, from Greece.
Dinah Manoff.
Dinah, thank you.
Grease,
thank you.
Empty Nest. And
Another sweetheart.
she's written a novel that is absolutely hilariously brilliant. She's just so gifted. She's so funny. Do you know she was 19 when she booked that part in Grease? She was the youngest person in the cast.
Wow. And Olivia was like 30 playing Sandra
Yeah,
Dee.
that's how talented Dinah was. She was just naturally funny and very good. And she can't sing and dance, and they just wanted her. You know, she was one of the Pink Ladies, so you had to have that big personality, and she had it.
But
And
she
her
had a
mom
cool
was
moment with
Lee
Ed
Grant.
Cookie Burns too. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fritz. I didn't mean to
No, I'm
interrupt you.
sorry. I interrupted you. Yeah, Ed Cookie Burns. Cookie, lend me your comb. Jeez, I'm old.
Now, Fritz, you were born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, you mentioned
Philadelphia.
you're not a baseball guy, but are you a Steelers fan at all?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's a Wikipedia error.
I love to dispel internet bullshit. So thank you for clearing that up.
You
If
just-
you're
I
out
was
there and you
referencing
know how to
Wikipedia.
work the Wikipedia, get in there and correct that.
Yeah, that needs to be fixed for sure. Okay, so well then we don't need to talk about the Phillies because you don't give a
No,
crap
but
about
I
baseball.
can make a comment about Philly sports fans. So I went to Temple University, and I was a student there when the Flyers. I even give less of a crap about hockey than I do about baseball. But when the Flyers won their first Stanley Cup, and it was such a big deal in Philadelphia that people in my class, this broadcasting class that I had, actually cut their final exam to go to the Flyers parade in North Philadelphia. They didn't get credit for the class. They had to come back the following September and take the final and get graded then. People were so nuts about the Flyers. They cut their final exams to go to this parade.
Priorities, people.
That makes sense.
And the Phillies, yeah, just an anecdote. People know that they won the World Series in 1980 and in 2008, respectively. But anyway, I'm not a Phillies fan, and those Phillies fans are mean. I went to a game
They're
once.
mean in all aspects of sports in Philadelphia.
Well,
And
I was with a guy. They
it's
spat on my
unfocused-
friend's face. Huh?
It's unfocused anger. And the angrier they are at sports events, the less likely they are to shoot their neighbor, which is entirely possible too.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. So, Louise, when is your birthday? Not the year, but just the day. I'm just curious so I can send you a birthday card.
11/11.
Oh, how cool is that? January 11th.
It's pretty cool. I'm not good with numbers, but remembering a 1 repeated, I can do.
That's awesome. Someone put my birthday on IMDb and where I was born, which is White Plains, New York. And that's a bit freaky because I didn't want that out there. And I didn't know if that was the case with you. I had trouble trying to find out what your birthday was. I don't know. I'm a birthday and a numbers guy. Anyway. But
I had a friend that lived in White Plains, New York. His father worked for the New York Central Railroad. And he had this huge model train set in his basement. And every winter I would go up there for a couple of days, and it was like the North Pole, man. It was so cool. Thousands of dollars he spent with these meticulous electric train layouts in his basement. Pretty cool. White Plains is a nice little area, a little suburban area.
that is cool, but I can't stand cold weather.
No,
And-
I agree with that.
Here in Atlanta, we have a pretty good mix, and it's so brutal in the summer with the humidity. You know, I love the dry heat of the West Coast.
Mhm.
Humidity sucks. And so I want to also talk about y'all's background. Y'all, there's my southern accent coming out and southern
Just the plural
vernacular.
of you. The plural of you is fine. I'm fine.
Some background on you, Louise. This is from Wikipedia, so correct me. But in your short documentary, Margaret Singer Seek Her Light, which was selected by the Santa Barbara International Film Festival in 2020,
Right.
do you have any anecdotes about that project that you want to
Well,
share?
it's a documentary about Margaret Singer. She was 97 years old when we made the documentary. And she had escaped Frankfurt with her sister. They were ages like 16 and 14. Her parents did not make it out. Her dad survived. Her mom was taken to Auschwitz. So imagine making your way at 16 years of age in Manhattan and trying to figure out where you're going to go from there without any parents. And she just is an artistic soul. So she started creating art. She's been creating art her whole entire life. She always lived life on her terms. She was sort of a bohemian before that was even a thing. She was a she calls herself the first flower child, and she just lived unconventionally. She never married, and she just rode around on a bicycle throughout Santa Barbara, usually with a painting under her arm. And she was the kind of person where everything she said you could embroider into a pillow. She just spoke so beautifully and has so much wisdom. And I just wanted to capture her. And blessedly, we were able to make that film. And she was able to watch the film with her community at the film festival. And she died 3 months later at the age of 97.
At least she saw it, but that's sad.
Beautiful.
And in 1999, you began a stand-up comedy program called Kids Comedy Club at 2 Los Angeles boys and girls clubs at the Santa Barbara Jewish Federation, where kids learn to write and perform their own stand-up comedy. That's pretty cool. I love the boys and girls clubs of America.
Right. I don't currently have time for that on my schedule, but I did that for years, worked with kids. I mentor kids. And now I mentor Fritz. I just want to make sure he's going to be doing okay.
Now, I stop me if you don't want me to go there, but in March of 2005, you testified in the trial of Michael Jackson, as a witness for the prosecution.
We both did. Fritz and I both share that experience. Like I said, Fritz it overlaps and intertwines with much of the highlights of my life. And any highlight reel of my life, Fritz is going to be in most of the frames. Yeah, we both kind of worked at the Laugh Factory doing stand-up. We worked on this comedy class that Jamie Masada had at the Laugh Factory for kids, underprivileged kids or kids with rough childhoods. And we met this family called the Arvizos. At Christmas time, we brought them presents. And then within a few months after that, the middle child, Gavin, was stricken with cancer. And we would go visit Gavin a few times a week at Kaiser. We thought he was going to die. So when someone introduced him to Michael Jackson, I kind of said, all right, well, he's bald and he can't walk, and he let him go to Neverland. I was already worried about children and Michael Jackson, but I figured, the sick kids are the smoke screen so that you can't tell which kid Michael Jackson is dating that year. But yeah, I should have been, I feel responsible because when Gavin got better, his hair grew back, then Michael was making this documentary and the whole family came up and they were in it. And then just the events started to unfold, and it looks like they were kept at Neverland when the documentary aired. And that's when the molestation occurred. And it's a very complicated case to try and explain in a few sentences, but because Fritz and I have both mentored Gavin, we both were witnesses at the trial.
And the reason why we were called by the prosecution was we taught Gavin in this summer stand-up comedy program, a very poised and very charismatic kid. And we just knew that this kid somehow was going to be a great success. And we decided to adopt the family for Christmas. So we went down to their home in East LA, which is the barrio essentially, and took them presents and went to their house and saw that it was like a 1-bedroom house divided by sheets, so all 3 kids could have their own space. It was truly poverty universe there. And we were called to testify because we had seen the circumstances that they lived their lives in. And the prosecution wanted to prove that the Arvizos were not into Michael Jackson for the money. They were getting nothing out of this. They were on the up and up, and we saw no indication of any money coming in from anywhere. These people, they had to take, correct me if I'm wrong, Wheezy, like 3 buses on Saturday morning to get to these classes. So nobody was getting any cash in this family. And so we were character witnesses for the prosecution in that case.
Well, they've never taken any cash anywhere. They've never done any press. They just want to live their lives. And
Gavin doesn't want to talk about it, right? What do you see? He doesn't.
No, he won't talk to the press. He wants to be a successful man. He's working on his career.
He's got his head on straight. Priorities.
He's a magnificent person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Louise, did you really grow up in Buffalo, New York then?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that's accurate.
Yeah.
And obviously you live in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara with your husband.
You should believe everything you read on the internet.
Well, I've dispelled. I had Heather Thomas, not the best actress in the world, but she was a very beautiful person growing up, and she dispelled some BS on the internet in terms of the wall poster that Farrah Fawcett did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is true. According to sales figures, that poster sold 12 million units. But what's not been shared on the internet, it's not a conspiracy. I just don't think that this information was ever put online. Heather Thomas's poster beat that record. She sold upwards of 20 million units of a poster of her in a pink bikini, for what it's worth. And she has no reason to fabricate. I mean, she's married to Skip, a very successful entertainment attorney in your neck of the woods. And I believe her. So, that's to your point. There is a lot of BS on the internet, and it's hard to surf through it.
I don't
sometimes.
think the general public would be able to stand that information if the truth was revealed, because that would just.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
a
fan of
lot.
Farrah.
I mean,
was
these are delicate times. Let's not hit them with all that.
This fluff, it's a fluff stat. But I was a fan of Farrah, and it's so sad that she died the same day as Michael Jackson, whom, of course, we were just talking about when you referenced the trial. That was June 25th, 2009, if memory serves. Just a terrible day. And Farrah got overshadowed by MJ's passing. She didn't get her due coverage, and then they snubbed her at the Oscars in the in memoriam section. She did do some movies. She was, again, like Heather Thomas, she wasn't, the best actress in the world, but she was in several films. Her film Extremities, though, that was a powerful performance. But I digress.
And the Flaming Bed, that one about
the Burning Bed TV, yes.
Burning Bed.
That one, excellent. Actually, yeah, that was a very powerful television movie with a very serious message. So here's some background about you, Fritz. I was going to do this after our interview. We're starting to wind down the interview here, but you were born obviously May 27th, and it says, now I know it's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and not Pittsburgh. So I'm going to try to correct that for you if I can. And you began the Media Path podcast in 2020. We've mentioned that a couple times. But is it true that you grew up in Radnor, Pennsylvania, or is that BS?
That was the name of the first school system I was in.
Okay.
Radnor High School was the arch rival of Lower Marion High School, which was where Kobe Bryant went to high school. So that's put that place on the map. They were arch rivals. And it was a beautiful place to grow up. I was glad to get out of there as a young man, but it was a spectacular, peaceful, supportive place to grow up.
And you attended Salem University in Salem, West Virginia?
College. Salem College was a small college in Clarksburg, West Virginia, designed specifically for unattentive, underachieving children. And I went there for a couple of years. Then I went in the Navy for 4 years. And then I got out and went to Temple University.
Yeah, it mentions Temple in Philadelphia. Now, where is Salem, West Virginia? Because I attended Marshall University. I studied communications, and that's in Huntington, West Virginia, which is near the border of Ohio.
Yeah, a couple of my cousins went to West Virginia University, which is up in Morgantown. I was never in Huntington, but Salem was great. It's a little town. It really was just, it was kind of an Appalachian Christmas card. And the beautiful thing about that place was, and you'll remember this, that maybe not when you went to school because you were young, but when I went to school, they had 3-2 beer, which was beer that was like a third or a half of the alcohol content of regular beer. So you could drink it when you were 18, which turned out to be my undoing when I went to college. It was terrible. It was really bad.
Kids should be able to drink at 18. If they can go to war, they should be able to have a drink. That's just my
opinion. Depending on the kid. I was not a kid where that would have been a good idea.
Well, the old joke, Virginia is for lovers, West Virginia is for cousins. I'll just leave it right there.
I like that.
Oh, let's see. Now it says, okay, well, we talked about the meteorology thing. We don't need to go there. So, but you did a lot of work as stand-up comedy. I've done some stand-up work, not as much as you. It's nerve-wracking, but my delivery sucks. I can't wait you have a great delivery. You're kind of deadpan. I like your comedy. And after this interview, after you sign off, I'm going to play your bit on aging. I like that comedy routine you do.
Okay.
Anyway, but I'm just going to read here verbatim. You worked as a disc jockey for several years and as a radio personality. Jay Fredericks at WBEN. Is that in New York? Where was WBEN?
I started at WBEN, but I finished my career in Buffalo at WKBW, which was a 50,000 watt clear channel radio station.
Oh, wow.
Had just a spectacular time there. Made
For
many
those that don't
good.
know, that means at night they don't have to power down. That goes
Yeah,
back to like the
we
World
would
War
get
II
fan
days.
mail from Bermuda. It was pretty cool.
Wow. We have a station like that in the Atlanta market, WSB. That's a clear
Yeah.
channel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Heritage station. So you left.
Atlanta is a great media town. They have great television and great radio.
Yeah, market number 7 currently. All we have are restaurants. So in terms of entertainment, we have failed sports teams, except the Braves did win the World Series in 2021. But all we have are restaurants, and we have an aquarium. It's nothing like the variety you have in California. I need to go back. I haven't been to your neck of the woods since 2007 when I was
don't
visiting
come out here
Stanley.
right now. There's too much traffic. You'll never get to where you're going, so don't come out here.
Oh, tell me
But
about
I
it.
will say that I spent 3 great weeks in Atlanta during the Olympics
Mhm.
in 1992.
96.
96, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was back in the day when the major markets, the first, second, and third market with NBC during the Olympics, because so many millions of people watched, they would send their entire news team to do the Olympics to do the news and the weather. So we did it from there, and we had we did all of our broadcasts from Centennial Park, and we had a little Quonset hut below the stage. They had a performance stage there during the Olympics. And then they had like 6 fiber optic locations around Centennial Park because you couldn't get microwave or satellite out of there because of the communications restrictions because of the Olympics. So we would unplug and plug into these various fiber optic stations. And one night I was right down to the right of the stage, plugged into a fiber optic station, which was right next to the bus bench under which was placed the backpack
Oh, no.
that had the Olympic Park bomb. So I had just finished the weather. It was 2:00 in the morning because we were doing the news live back to LA. It was their 11 o'clock news, the 2:00 thing. I had just finished the weather. And I walked back to the Quonset hut under the stage, which was our news headquarters, and boom, we thought it was an earthquake. It felt like, honest to God, a 6 or a 7-point earthquake. And my cameraman, who was still on duty, was the only guy with video equipment in the park. He shot all this stuff, and the lady laying there that ultimately died. And he was the only person that got the video of that scene that was on network television. And we were up all night doing these interviews with like German television and Hungarian television and, interviews about this bomb that went off. And it was a great experience. We didn't even feel it until I had no sense of what had happened until a couple of days later because it was all a flash. But after the bomb went off, we had to continue the broadcast, and I would go around and Olympic villages where you could meet and greet all the families and the athletes from the 150 countries. And we would go talk to them, and I said, "Oh my God, what about the bomb going off?" And they go, "Are you kidding? We came from a country where bombs go off every day. That was nothing." And they were so nonplussed about it. They said, "You don't understand. We had to sell our home to be able to bring our child to compete in the Olympics. Nothing's going to ruin this experience for us." So it was a great learning experience about humanity for me being down there, but it was crazy.
What a great story. And yeah, that religious zealot psycho, Eric Rudolph, did that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Richard Jewell was blamed. The media blamed him. The security guard
Richard Jewell
found
was the security guy who would oversee our live shots when we would do them. He was the guy that kept the fans away. And that what he had to go through was just inexcusable. And of course, NBC and Tom Brokaw got sued for that, for misrepresenting him as being the guy.
So
And
did the Atlanta Journal-Constitution here, our big news.
yeah.
So, and of course, Clint Eastwood did a movie about it not too long ago, a few years ago. So you knew instinctively that Richard Jewell was innocent back then when they were pointing the fingers at him?
Listen, I was in no position to make a judgment about that either. I didn't know what he did in his free time. Maybe he built bombs and put them in backpacks. I didn't know. But he was always our guard. Wherever we did a live shot, he was our guard.
Wow. Hey, we have some breaking sad news. Richard Moll has passed away. The bull, the bailiff in Night Court.
Night Court.
80 years old today. Terrible.
Oh.
Yeah. He refused to be in the Night Court reboot, which is currently on NBC. I wish he had been in that. He was one of my
Why
favorite
is that?
characters.
Why did he refuse? Does it say?
I don't have any information on that. I don't remember a statement. He just chose not to be a part of it.
You know, with John LaRoquette, it got some good reviews. I never saw it, but
I didn't
you know,
like it. I watched the
Frasier's
first
got
few
good
episodes.
reviews, that reboot, and I think Will and Grace is even funnier in reboot than it was in the original. It's so funny and so edgy.
And God bless Harry Anderson. What a talent he was, and a
Yeah.
magician to boot. But he
Yeah.
was 6 feet 8 inches tall.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Incredible. I don't see a reason. Okay, well, we'll move on. I just wanted to report that as we're live. That's awful. So thanks to Tom Williams, who commented to let me know about that in the live feed there in the comment section. By the way, last call. If you have questions for Louise or Fritz, those that are watching live, ask away, because we're going to start to wrap this up with them. They're busy people. Let me see what else I wanted to ask you about your career. So that's cool that you were on that Clear Channel. And it says that you left Buffalo for Los Angeles in 1980. That's the year Vanna White headed to LA from South Carolina. And you started as a stand-up comic. And then in 82, you began work as that weekend weatherman at KNBC, Channel 4.
Right.
Became the weekday weatherman in 1984.
I actually came out here to stalk Vanna White. That was my reason for coming out.
You know, sadly, my Shanna Lee, the woman who passed away, my good friend, she looked just like Vanna White in her younger years. She did. She was a beautiful soul, inside and out. We were never romantically involved, never wanted to be. I thought of her as a sister. She was a neighbor of mine and just a great, great friend. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'll talk about her after the conclusion of this interview in greater detail for anyone that's interested. And let's see, you also appeared on some KNBC shows, including It's Fritz from 1988 to 1990. Those were the years who was that guy in New Jersey? Morton Downey Jr., that pablum pushing, obnoxious cigarette smoking host. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I just had a little flashback of nostalgia there. And you were on What a Week from 1990 to 1991. And you've written and performed 2 one-man theater acts titled The Reception and It's Me, Dad. And you received the 2004 EMA Community Service Award for your involvement with KNBC's For Our Planet, a children's program. And you appeared in a supporting... Yeah. And then we already talked about the Raymond Burr, Perry Mason TV film Case of the Telltale Talk Show host back in 93. I've been watching Matlock for the very first time. I always thought that was, a show like Murder, She Wrote, and I never paid attention to it, but that's a damn good show and it holds up for the most part. Anyway, I've been watching that streaming, and that's a well-written show. It's not quite as good as Columbo, but I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
I have not.
So let's see. Now, this is something I don't understand. You received a credit in the film Wake Up, Ron Burgundy, The Lost Movie, which was an alternate film companion to Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
I got a credit in the actual movie, Ron Burgundy, Anchorman.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why, because Judd Apatow is a friend of mine. He was one of the producers and writers. And Adam McKay that directed that movie, and I went to the same high school. So one time when they were creating this character, Judd asked me to go out to lunch and join him and Adam. They just wanted to ask me questions about quirky male anchor people. So the lunch lasted 3 hours. And at the end of the lunch, we all laughed until our bellies hurt. At the end of lunch, he said, "This has all been great and very useful. The only problem is we can't use any of your stories because nobody would believe they're true." And so I'm not going to mention the name of the person who I sort of pinged my explanations off of, but man, that was a funny movie and dead on.
Definitely. I worked on the sequel here in Atlanta.
Narcissism and hubris is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked on the sequel for 14 days in the fictional GNN set in the now demolished records building of Atlanta, but I was just an extra, but I saw it all. Judd Apatow treated everyone very, very nicely, spared no expense at the craft services
I knew him
table.
from when he was a mediocre host at the Improv. He was the MC.
What a mega success too. Good God.
Yeah.
And he gave us Leg of Lamb. I mean, oh God, the food was just phenomenal. That was 14 days I'll never forget. And watching the director McKay feed the lines, the improvised lines to Will Ferrell with a microphone, and he had an earpiece in. So
Mhm.
some of the lines were actually written by McKay in
Yeah.
Anchorman 2 anyway.
Yeah, very funny man.
And then let's see, from 2009 to 2011, you also had a weekday weather show for KNBC in Los Angeles and KNSD in San Diego. That's pretty cool. You got 2 paychecks. That's awesome. And then on June 17th, 2020, you announced that you would retire.
That's not exactly true.
Oh,
That was one of those involuntary increases in my responsibilities. It only garnered more responsibility. It didn't garner a larger paycheck. So that was a period of time when the NBC network was experimenting with this thing called hubbing, where the major markets would do sports and weather for smaller markets, and they could save a paycheck by doing that. So which was a huge mistake. It was just a huge mistake, but I did it for 2 years, and the people in San Diego were very nice and patient.
I love San Diego. God, I want to go back. What a great town. If
You're
you
going to
ever
forgive me. I hope this doesn't mess you up, but I have another podcast in exactly 7 minutes.
Okay, no, we'll wrap it. Can you give me just one more minute?
Okay, sure.
1 minute. If you ever see the movie Lawless, look for me as Guy Pearce's henchman, tarring and feathering the bootleg.
Oh my God.
That's a true story, Lawless. If you've not seen it, Jessica Chastain's in it. Tom Hardy is in it. Gary Oldman is in that film. It's a great Miramax movie about the Prohibition days. The Darabont brothers. Shia LaBeouf's in it. Great movie, but it's a little violent, but it's an absolute true story. And that was a really fun shoot in Noonan, Georgia. Anyway, but Louise, would you be willing to come back in the future after I've seen your other projects?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, Fritz, I know you got to run, so just hit the button, sir. And I just want to thank you for being a part of the Nostalgic Podblast. I know that's probably a big step down after being on Adam Carolla's show, but I'm very grateful for your time.
I
also need to jump as well.
No worries. I have some other nostalgic stuff to talk about, but thank you so much to both of you.
All right.
Thank you for inviting us on. Keep up.
Yeah, and I'm a subscriber to your YouTube channel, Media Path Podcast. Go and subscribe to their YouTube channel, and I'll be watching and listening to your new episodes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ken.
Nice to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye for now. That's our guest. So now I'm going to play some of the Fritz Coleman stand-up comedy on aging as I take a break. And I hope I didn't talk over them too much, folks. And by the way, before we got started, I had all sorts of screw-ups. I could not hear either one of them. It was very stressful for me, but I worked through it, powered through it. And, let me see something here. Really sad about Richard Moll passing away. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Thank you, Tom Williams, if you're still out there watching or listening, letting me know about that. And let me get a clip here. They were great. And I guess that was about just over an hour of their time. Okay, let's listen to Fritz. This is about a 5-minute comedy clip of Fritz Coleman talking about aging.
Every single day, something reminds you you're getting old. You know you're getting old when parts of your body begin to go through their own midlife crisis. Your face decides it doesn't want to be a face anymore. For whatever time it has remaining, it would like to live out a childhood fantasy and become a chin. So the skin from your face, your chest says, I'm not going to be a chest anymore. I don't want to work that hard. I'm going to retire and move south and become a stomach. Your once tight athletic thighs give up, loosen their grip, ooze down your leg like tapioca as far as they can go toward the floor, re-solidify as swollen ankles. Every day. You know you're getting old when every conversation you have with your friends includes a medical update. Well, it's been a good week for me, Bob. My Apple stock went up and my PSA went down. Knock on wood. Say, Bob, how's that new sprinkler system you put in out at the house? I could use a new sprinkler system myself, if you know what I mean. Mine's more like drip irrigation. We're going to talk about this. We need to talk about this. That's a sign you're getting old when you have to visit doctors you've never had to visit before. Men have to visit the urologist. Visiting the urologist is a rite of passage of men of a certain age. Our bat mitzvah.
What the hell
It's
happened?
very scary the first time you go to the urologist. You're looking around the room at all these 85 and 90-year-old men going, oh my God, this is a reunion of Civil War veterans. What am I doing here? I was so scared the first time I went to the urologist office. I'm sitting in that waiting room, nervously leafing through the December issue of American Prostate magazine, saying to myself, I certainly hope Dr. Weinstein is gentle. I've never met the man, but in just a few short minutes, he's going to be spelunking in the Fritz cave. And all I know about him is he got a 4 rubber glove rating on Yelp. Coincidentally, Yelp is the sound I'll be making during the examination. We're going to talk about this. That's why we're here. This is the conference on aging, and I'm going to talk about it. A sad thing occurs to men. Face the reality. When you're a young man, your entire life is controlled from this area. All of your major decisions are made from this area. Then you become an old man, and your entire life is controlled from this area. All of your major decisions are made from this area, but for a completely different reason. When you're a young man, it's the bedroom. When you're an old man, it's the bathroom. But the symptoms are identical. You have strong urges. You have thoughts about doing it on the average once every 3.5 minutes. And when you're finished, if it's a really good one, you shiver. These are the issues. We're going to talk about this. Old people, listen, here's the reality. Old people pee more frequently. Young people pee all at once. Because young people are all about instant gratification. Old people learn to pace themselves. Do it a little bit at a time. Because if you do it all at once, there's nothing to do later. It gives an old person something to look forward to.
That's Fritz Coleman. I got one other clip. This is only about 30 seconds worth of material, but I thought this was pretty good. Let me see if I can find it. And then I'm going to play a quick clip of Louise's project. You've got to see it on Amazon Prime about the Cowsills.
Because I'm a weatherman, this is my
Called Family Band, the Cowsill Story. Just search for it on Amazon Prime. It's only 90 minutes long, an hour and a half long. It's a great, great documentary. And they have all the rights to the songs and awesome clips. On the Tonight Show, did I mention that to Louise? I meant to. I'm trying to remember if I did. But they found great footage of the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson in New York City. Black and white footage of the mom of the family. And incidentally, I know I didn't say this. The reason that they didn't use the Cowsills in the Partridge Family, according to Shirley Jones in the documentary, there's an interview with her. She said they wanted actors. And the Cowsills were musicians. They weren't actors. They had no acting experience. So that was the reason. Here's another quick 30 seconds of Fritz doing some stand-up comedy.
I'm bitter because I'm a weatherman. This is my 32nd year being a weatherman in a city with no weather. I have a lot of free time. It's been the same weather since the Paleolithic era, but every day I have to show up with a nice suit and a pleasant smile and stand in front of my maps going, as you can see here, morning clouds and fog, hazy afternoon sun, what a surprise, back to you.
there's that. Now, here's a quick little trailer, a couple of minutes for this project on Amazon Prime that I really, really enjoyed. And it's just really sad and sweet. And then we're going to talk about the nostalgic treat of the week and the regular nostalgia features that that hopefully you enjoy. I like to bring them to you, and hopefully you enjoy learning and listening with them along with me. So let me find here. This is Family Band, the Cowsill story trailer. And let me get my little cue mark going here. Here we go.
Here's a group of new recording stars. Bill, Bob, Barry, John, Susan Cowsill with their mother Barbara.
I remember standing where McCartney had stood, opposite to stand in John's spot, and that was it, man. In a room full of screaming girls, and it was, you know, for all intents and purposes, we were the Beatles for the night.
We were right up there next to the Monkees, the Beatles, Paul Revere and the Raiders. We were huge.
Give me a head with hair, long, beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, streaming, flaxen, waxing. Give me down to there, shoulder length longer. Here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy. Grow it, show it, long as I can grow it by hair.
One of the most musically gifted American families to hit the top of the pop charts, the Cowsills rose to fame, success, and stardom in the late 60s. 5 years later, their star came crashing back down to earth. In 2010, you will learn what happened to the Cowsills.
Check it out on Amazon Prime. Trust me, it's really good. Good stuff. And the guest, one of the guests, Louise Palanker, was the director, producer, and co-writer of that project. So, yeah, man, Richard Moll died. Bull, the original Bull. Isn't that some bullshit? Excuse me, family show. But, yeah, no, seriously, that is bullshit. That sucks that he's dead. Man, thank you, Tom. Let me read an article about that, and then we'll talk about some fun, happy nostalgia stuff. And find out, see if they've announced a reason for his passing. Let me read from these liars. I'm just kidding. This source here. I like Hollywood Reporter. Let me read this. Richard Moll, Bull, the bailiff on Night Court, dies at 80. Shaving his head for a movie helped him get the part of a lifetime. And he spent 9 seasons on the hit NBC sitcom. You ever see the horror movie House? That's a good Halloween movie he was in, where he played the ghost of a Vietnam soldier. Really good, scary movie. I need to add that to my list. And I have some other Halloween movies to recommend. As we're live, you know, it's not quite Halloween. I'm sure many of you will listen to this after Halloween, so I don't want to be too heavy into the Halloween stuff. I forgot to turn on my jack-o'-lantern in the background. But let me read this from the Hollywood Reporter to you. Richard Moll, the fun-loving actor who portrayed the towering and tender-hearted bailiff Aristotle Nostradamus Bull Shannon in all 9 seasons of the popular original NBC sitcom Night Court during its original run, has died. He was 80. Moll died peacefully Thursday at his home in Big Bear Lake, California, his publicist announced. Suitable for his 6'8" frame, Moll played an abominable snowman alongside Ringo Starr and Barbara Bach in the comedy feature Caveman. And I remember him in an episode of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo playing the leader of a biker gang back in 1979. There was a 3-part crossover. Part 1 was an episode of BJ and the Bear. Part 2 was an episode of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, and Part 3 was an episode of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. Not, of course, a life-changing role for him, but it was an interesting, funny role. And you never see that show anymore. It's never released on home video or DVD, but we're talking about Richard Moll, who passed. He was in Caveman with Ringo Starr and Barbara Bach. That's where they met, by the way. Still married to this day. True power couple, Ringo Starr and Barbara Bach. Barbara Bach, of course, was in The Spy Who Loved Me before Caveman as a Bond girl. She played a Russian agent. Along with Caroline Monroe, she was in the cast. She was a minor Bond girl in that film, The Spy Who Loved Me, released in 1977. And our friend of the show, Curtis Lanco is with Caroline Munro at a convention right here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, horror convention. And he just texted me a picture with her. Had lunch with him today. Retrozest.com. Check out his podcast if you're into nostalgia, and I'm sure you are, or you wouldn't be here. But he took a picture with her back in the 80s. He showed it to me at lunch, and he's going to have her sign it. I'm sure he already did, of him as a teenager, and he's going to meet her all these decades later at this horror convention in Peachtree Corners in the metro Atlanta area at a hotel there. And also in attendance is the director of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and Time After Time. Nicholas Meyer is going to be there. Hopefully he didn't cancel. Sometimes you have people that surprising talent that show up at these conventions, these fan meet and greets, and then some of them cancel at the last minute for various reasons, sometimes legitimate, and sometimes because either they wanted more money or the promoters didn't have enough money to pay them, or maybe there's an illness. You know, there could be a legitimate reason. Hopefully Nicholas Meyer did not cancel. I would think he's a Saturday only attendee. This is Friday as we're live. But Richard Moll also did lots of voiceover work with a regular gig as the immortal bodyguard Norman on the syndicated series Mighty Max. And he did turns as Harvey Dent, Two-Face, for 3 Batman cartoons. And again, like I said, he was the decomposing Vietnam veteran in the horror film House from 1986. That's a great underrated horror movie. So Moll had a shaved head. He did that to play the warrior Horok in the sci-fi film Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jared Sin in 1983, when he auditioned for the role of Bull Shannon on Night Court. Quote, "They said, 'Richard, the shaved head looks good. Will you shave your head for the part?' Unquote," he recalled in a 2010 interview. I said, "Are you kidding? I'll shave my legs for the part. I'll shave my armpits. I don't care." With Night Court being nominated 3 times for the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series, Richard Moll came up with the catchphrase, "Okay." And he appeared on all but one of the show's 193 episodes from 1984 until 1992, alongside the likes of Harry Anderson, John Larroquette, whom Fritz talked about in my interview with him earlier tonight, Charlie Robinson, and the late, beautiful Markie Post. She had left The Fall Guy to do Night Court. The writers didn't write enough for her in Fall Guy, but thank goodness she did leave Fall Guy at the end of season 4 of that 5-season show, because she was just perfect on Night Court. So Richard Moll was not involved with the Larroquette Top Line Night Court reboot, talked about that with Fritz, that returned to NBC for the 2022 to 2023 television season. I guess it's already canceled. I'll verify that. I didn't think it'd do well. It wasn't very good. I mean, there's no Harry Anderson, right? Man, he made that show. It was a great ensemble cast with chemistry. The chemistry was lacking in this new cast, in my opinion. I gave it a chance. I gave it a shot. But Charles Richard Moll was born in Pasadena, California on January 13th, 1943. His mother, Violet, was a nurse, and his father, Harry, a lawyer. A history and psychology major at the University of California at Berkeley, he graduated in 1964, then worked as a deputy probation officer in Alameda County, and in ladies' hosiery at a store in San Francisco. Richard Moll came to Los Angeles in 1968 to pursue acting, but found the going tough at first. He got to play a cannibal in a Hertz commercial opposite Don Adams from Get Smart, the star of Get Smart, and Inspector Gadget in the cartoon world. And then he played Joseph Smith in a 1977 biopic about Brigham Young before landing parts in episodes of Welcome Back, Kotter and The Rockford Files, among other roles. Like the one I talked about, The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. Look at all that cash. He sees all this cash. Someone had robbed a casino in that 3-part BJ and the Bear, Sheriff Lobo crossover. They put like this knockout gas into the ventilation system, and it knocked out everyone in the casino. And these 2 attractive ladies went into the cashier's cage and stole all the money, $1 million, and stuffed it in a suitcase. Anyway, in part 3, there's a big hunt for the cash, the satchel of cash, and money goes flying. And Richard Moll, as the leader of the biker gang, sees the money go flying. He goes, "Look at all that cash!" I don't know. It just stuck with me. In 1979, Richard Moll was cast as a gangster in the two-part Happy Days episode titled Fonzie's Funeral. And that led to appearances in two other Gary Marshall-created shows, Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy. Richard filled out his resume with work in films including Hard Country in 1981 and Ralph Bakshi's animated classic American Pop in 1981, whom James Tim Walker worked on, who's been a guest here on the Nostalgic Podblast. And he was in such TV shows as The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, BJ and the Bear. Oh, damn, they did mention it in the article. Good on you, Hollywood Reporter. I didn't think they would. Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, T.J. Hooker, the sitcom Alice starring Linda Lavin, and The Dukes of Hazzard before landing on Night Court. Bull was going to be very hard-edged, he told People magazine in 2003, quote, but I think they saw something in me to make him a lot softer, unquote. At the Manhattan Municipal Criminal Court, his character sweetly bonded with female bailiffs Selma Hacker, played by Selma Diamond, who died between seasons 2 and 3, Flo Kleiner, Florence Hallop, who died in between seasons 3 and 4, and Roz Russell, played by Marsha Warfield, who's still with us, thankfully. Knock on wood. Richard Moll played himself in a 1987 two-part episode of NBC's The Facts of Life and reoccurred as the Drifter on the 1999 to 2002 Nickelodeon comedy titled 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd. Richard Moll also showed up on Highlander, Babylon 5, Married with Children, and Anger Management, and in the films The Flintstones in 1994, But I'm a Cheerleader in 1999, and Scary Movie 2 in 2001. An avid bird watcher and nature lover, Richard Moll was married and divorced twice. His second wife, Susan, was a daughter of Milton Berle's third and last wife, Lorna Adams. Survivors also include his children, Chloe and Mason, and his stepchildren, Cassandra and Morgan. That's the end of the article. You know, as I always say, if you never get married, you'll never be divorced. Why make fighting legal? No, I'm kidding. So rest in peace, sir. That's just a great character actor. And by the way, I have a new feature starting this week where I talk about a character actor. And Richard Moll was on my list of a future Podblast, dang it. So, well, we featured him early, but not for a good reason. Rest in peace, sir. You will be missed. But as I always say, you are immortal on screen and in film. So let's see here what I got next for you. I want to play a little bit of a performance of the Cowsills, so I can take another break and have a little bit of coffee here and have a piece of candy for a little pick-me-up. I already played a little bit of this, but I want to play a little bit of Hair, a live performance of Hair. Let me get to it. I played some of it at the very beginning. I was going to play the whole thing, but I did not want our guests to wait in the green room for a long time. Let's listen to a little bit of this. love that song. I want to play another quick song from the Cowsills. Another hit, of course. I'm not going to play the Love American Style theme. I played that a lot on the Podblast. Maybe I should towards the end. I might sign off with that. But let's listen to this song. I want to make sure it's not the original version, which will get me into a little bit of trouble. Here we go. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. You know this song.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cowsill.
That's Shirley Jones introducing them, by the way, from the Partridge Family. And all those great movies, like Meet Me in St. Louis.
Oh, that's a good start.
Damn it.
I saw her sitting in the rain, raindrops falling on her. She didn't seem to care. She sat there and smiled at me. And I knew she could make me happy. She had made me very happy. I was here. I was everywhere. I love the flower girl.
It sounds a little like the original, so I better cut it because it'll get muted anyway on Facebook after the fact, after I'm live. I think I can play the Ed Sullivan performance, and this is a live version of that song. Hope I can.
Suddenly the sun broke. Turned around, she was gone. And all I had left was one little flower in my hand. But I knew she could make me happy. She had made me very happy. I was everywhere. I love the flower girl. Was she reality or just a dream to me? I love the flower girl. Well, it showed me the way to find a sunny day. Sunny day, sunny day. I love the flower girl. Was she reality or just a dream to me? I love the flower girl. Well, it showed me the way to find a sunny day.
I was just so impressed by our guest, Louise Palanker's biopic that's on Amazon Prime. Yes, I'm repeating myself for the benefit of anyone who's joining us late as we're live. 90 minutes long, and it's just so well done and so thorough, and you learn a lot. Meeting a Baby Ruth, little bite-sized deal. Got to brush my teeth in a minute. Anyway, let's get back to the nostalgia. I mentioned this during the interview, but have you ever noticed how the person that says, you know, she still looks good, about an older actress, never look good in their life? It's true. Correction corner time. I mentioned a while back in my Battlestar Galactica 45th anniversary Podblast, there was something I forgot to say that I wanted to say, and I remembered what it was. This is really brief. Remember in the classic Star Trek series, the Klingons, how they didn't have any prosthetics like they did in the movies? They basically, I did mention this, they unfortunately were in blackface in the original show. They really were. The actors that played the Klingons, starting with John Colicos. He was the first Klingon in the first season of the original Star Trek, streams on Paramount Plus, in an episode titled Errand of Mercy. And in Battlestar Galactica, he played Baltar, the traitor to the human race. But before that, 10 years before that, he was on Star Trek as a Klingon. Then you had other actors like Michael Ansara in season 3 of Star Trek, the episode Day of the Dove, playing a Klingon. Susan Howard played his Klingon woman. And Susan Howard, 10 years after that 1968 Star Trek, would be in Dallas as Donna, Ray Krebs' woman. And she looked entirely different as a Klingon. And she was in Susan Howard, a Land of the Giants episode as well, that I have on 16 millimeter film called Collector's Item. It's a great episode with this psycho in a wheelchair a rich guy who's murdered people to collect various items in his collection. Like in this one room, he's like, I killed an entire family for that object. You know, just a despicable person. Of course, he gets his comeuppance at the end of that episode of Land of the Giants, collector's item from season 2 of that show. But he's talking with his nephew about how he did all these terrible things to get this item or that item or that item. And at the end, he gets blown up. Spoiler alert. It's a great scene. He gets blown to bits, that some bitch character who had killed to get all these collector's items. And his nephew, to get in his uncle's good graces, captures one of the little people played by Deanna Lund, puts her in a gilded cage, like a little cage. It's like a living music box where she's dancing. And of course, the nephew lies to Deanna Lund's character, who's supposed to be a movie star. It was a ripoff of Ginger Grant and Gilligan's Island in Land of the Giants, by the way. And she was a redhead, just like Tina Louise, the actress Deanna Lund. And she played an actress on that flight before they got trapped on the World of the Giants, went through a whole nother dimension in the pilot. Have that on film too, mint color, but that's another story. Directed by Irwin Allen, the pilot of Land of the Giants. I'm all over the place. It's the coffee and the sugars combining to make me a spaz at the moment. But getting back to the Star Trek thing. When Star Trek the Motion Picture was released in December 1970, was it 79 or 78? I need to look that up. I think it was December 79, shot in 78. Yes, December 79. They showed Klingons with, all of a sudden they have these big heads and, you know, they look like a goddamn Baby Ruth bar on their forehead, you know, all bumpy and dark and nasty looking. And that reminds me of that great scene in Caddyshack with Bill Murray. I'm digressing with the Baby Ruth bar in the pool, the swimming pool. They did like a Jaws take where it looks like a piece of poop chasing everyone around. You know the scene. It's hilarious. They drain the pool and he takes a big bite of the Baby Ruth. Oh, no problem. People faint. But anyway, so here's my connection with Battlestar Galactica with Star Trek the Motion Picture. The people that produced Star Trek the Motion Picture for Paramount Pictures ripped off Battlestar Galactica because in Galactica, there were aliens towards the second half of the only real season of Battlestar Galactica, the classic show, not the one from the late 90s and early 2000s, where there were these aliens that looked just like the Klingons in the movies. So Star Trek copied the way these aliens looked in Battlestar Galactica in the Galactica universe, and those aliens were called the Beryllian Nomen. Nomen, N-O-M-E-N, like no men, where no man's gone before, but no men. Beryllian Nomen. If you don't know what I'm looking about, look it up. You'll see. Look up Lance Legault, Alien Galactica, and you'll see it. And pretty soon I'm going to be able to throw that up on the screen for you. I've got a supercomputer. I'm just waiting for one other part. I just need a little monitor, and then I'll be good to go. And we're going to take the Podblast to another dimension, a better dimension, where I have video and more video tricks for YouTube, and it's going to be streamed live on both YouTube and Facebook Live. What I do now is I go live in the Facebook group, The Nostalgic Podblast, and then after it's live, immediately after, I throw it up on YouTube instead of simulcasting it. And heck, sometimes lately I've been going live on YouTube. I'll do the whole show over again on YouTube Live for the YouTube audience, the YouTubers as I call them, and then I do a separate performance, if you will, for the Facebook audience. And then everyone hears it in the audio platforms from the version I think is best of the two. I convert that to an audio show for Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Nostalgic Podblast with a C. If you're listening and you want to see what the heck I'm talking about, because I do have some things on camera, even though currently it's a one-camera operation, just head to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast. Not nostalgia, nostalgic with a C at the end. The Nostalgic Podblast. Just Google it. That's the easiest thing to do. Just Google The Nostalgic Podblast, do a Google search, and right at the top, you'll see Nostalgic Podblast YouTube. Click that and subscribe if you want. What's in it for you? I have a random drawing, and I'm giving away some DVDs of the classic television show Lost in Space. If you can still play DVD, I know it's outdated technology. A lot of people can't play DVDs, but a lot of people still have Xboxes, and Blu-ray players will play DVDs. So, you know, I think that's like manufactured technology. I think it's been manufactured to be obsolete before its time. Netflix, of course, stopped delivering DVDs. That's a huge blow to DVD lovers for sure. They're streaming only. And I know that streaming obviously is here and it's not going away. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I'm Chance Bartels, your faithful host. If you're a collector and you don't want to see your favorite movie go away, which things do disappear, if something becomes politically incorrect, it'll get canceled, it'll be gone. You need to have a physical version of your favorite film before it does go away. And I always have a backup Blu-ray player, an extra one or a DVD player, just in case the machines I have go bad. That's just me. I know that's a little bit extreme, but how do you like this? I mean, I don't like how Apple with the MacBooks and the laptop makers at Microsoft, they got rid of the tray to play a DVD and Blu-ray on your computer. That's all by design. They want to control the entertainment. Hell, I'll never, ever want to give that up. And yes, I use flash drives all the time. I keep up with modern technology, but I'm still using compact discs for my music. Of course, vinyl. Vinyl's come back. It's selling more than compact discs. I told you about that, and you know that probably from your own news sources. I'll never give that up. No way. I think it's good to have both. Have it all. Have streaming, and then also, hell, I have film for real projections, which I know nobody out there is going to have unless it's Al and Tom watching. I doubt anybody out there still has reel-to-reel film, which is the way TV stations would show movies and television shows and shorts like the Three Stooges before they switched to videotape and then digital technology. I love film, man. It takes everything to a whole nother level. And there's things on film, particularly in certain TV shows, that were not put on the streaming version or even the Blu-ray or DVD version. Shows like Wonder Woman, where they had a cool little 30-second trailer before the first several season 2 episodes of Wonder Woman. They're on my films, but they're not on the DVDs. Warner went on the cheap with that, and they didn't include those. And the old V series, I know this is very niche. I mean, I doubt 1% even gives a crap about V, the series with the lizard people. It only lasted 1 year after it was 2 successful miniseries. V, the original series directed by guest of the Podblast, Kenneth Johnson, who wrote, produced, and created the whole V universe. Yeah, there's some dated clothes in there and music, but that whole story really holds up if you watch it with control. It's all about control of the masses in V, the original miniseries, and V, the final battle, which our friend of the show, friend of the Podblast, Kenneth Johnson, did not have anything to do with besides a credit as a creator of V. But I like certain elements of V, the final battle, as well. But I need to see if Kenneth Johnson will come back. He was on a year ago, almost to the day, in November 2022. And you can find it if you just Google The Nostalgic Podblast, Kenneth Johnson. He's just turned 81 years old. Happy belated birthday to Kenneth Johnson. If he's listening, I doubt he is, but he might be. I've met him a couple of times in person in Tampa, Florida, and in Burbank, California in 2007. And he's such an intelligent man. And he has a new book that's been out for about a year. It's about Sherlock Holmes, called Holmes Coming. And it's a time travel murder mystery. And it's a great read. So let's see. Let's get to I'm going to talk about our new feature, Character Actor of the Week. But I have to tell you about our friends really quickly at Remind Magazine. Haven't checked my mail today. I bet you the new issue's in there for November 2023. But since it's not quite Halloween, did you know, I'm going to give you a little factoid, that WKRP in Cincinnati, the Turkeys Away Thanksgiving episode, did not air in the month of November. No, it aired on October 30th before Halloween. Isn't that weird? The way networks choose to air shows in whatever order. Let me see how this looks on camera. But Remind Magazine, oh, it's not in frame. Big surprise. Hang on, let me get this for the viewers. I got to get this right. I got to do our friends at Remind Magazine right. They're great sponsors of the Nostalgic Podblast, and I got to do my part. Let's see here. How that looks. That's better. So this will make an awesome gift for the holidays or a birthday gift after the holidays. If you're listening, it's not the holidays. For $12, you can give someone an introductory year of Remind Magazine. That includes shipping, that includes tax. $12. It's normally over $5 an issue, including tax, at the newsstand. Barnes & Noble carries Remind Magazine. A lot of other newsstands do. Now, if you're here listening or watching the Nostalgic Podblast, the chances are you like nostalgia. Well, this magazine is all about nostalgia. Talking about Remind Magazine, it's loaded with interesting articles, games, full-color photos, interviews with your favorite stars, creators, and personalities, and lots more. Remind Magazine offers fresh takes on popular entertainment from days gone by that make us feel happy. I'm adding that to the script. Each issue has dozens of brain-teasing puzzles, trivia quizzes, classic comics, and monthly themed features from the 1950s through the 1990s. And the best part is, it comes to you in the mail each and every month, just like when you were younger, when you got Mad Magazine in the mail, or even Dynamite Magazine, or Sports Illustrated Magazine, Boys Life. You get the point. Boys Life Magazine. Well, Remind Magazine is not written for kids like those magazines were. Remind is written for adults while gently tapping your inner child. Your entire family will love it. And here's how you can give this gift for only $1 an issue for an entire year for just $12. They'll think you spent a lot more than $12. Just go to remindmagazine.com. They do accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover on their secure order page, or you can call them toll-free, old school, and talk with a human being in America at 855-773-6463, and a kind order specialist will assist you in processing your Remind subscription. And please, if you would be so kind, mention the Nostalgic Podblast when you order, when you call, or if you order online. Okay, back to this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. It's finally time for our new feature, which I call the Character Actor Spotlight. I'm going to play a clip before I reveal who it is. I guess I could tell you the name. Yeah, let me tell you the name of the person as I gear up this clip of this gentleman. This is an awesome character actor. Let me get this queued up. This is an awesome clip, man. Oh, Clifton James. Do you know who that is? I was going to highlight two character actors. Let's just do one because we talked about Richard Moll. He wasn't my original second choice. I have another one, a good one. I'll save it for next week. We're talking about Clifton James, who did get typecast for playing a sheriff in certain movies we'll talk about. But before that, he was in this classic movie, Cool Hand Luke.
No playing grab ass or fighting in the building. You got a grudge against another man, you fight him Saturday afternoon. Any man playing grab ass or fighting in the building spends the night in the box. First bell is at 5 minutes of 8. When you will get in your point. Last bell is at 8. Any man not in his bunk at 8 spends the night in the box. There's no smoking in the prone position in bed. To smoke, you must have both legs over the side of your bunk. Any man caught smoking in the prone position in bed spends the night in the box. You get 2 sheets every Saturday. You put the clean sheet in the top sheet in the bottom sheet you turn in the laundry boy. Any man turns in the wrong sheet spends the night in the box. Which no one will sit in the bunks with dirty pants on. Any man with dirty pants on sitting on the bunk spends the night in the box. Any man don't bring back his empty pop bottle spends the night in the box. Any man loud talking spends the night in the box. You got questions? You come to me. I'm Carr, the floor walker. I'm responsible for order in here. Any man don't keep order spends the night in the box. I hope you ain't gonna be a hard case. Which sheet? 9, 12.
Hey, before, see what to take. You owe me a cold run.
I owe you. Forward, Slinky!
Hey, you guys from Connecticut?
Again. Wash them up! Wash them up! Move!
There you go, Cool Hand Luke. And there was another great character actor in that movie, Strother Martin. What we have here is a fay to communicate. I'll feature him in the future. I want to acknowledge some people live. We'll talk about Clifton James. I got another clip for you, too. He's part of the James Bond universe. Everybody knows that. But hey to Jerry Dobson. He's the dean of Nostalgia World on Facebook. And he also says, he comments, bring back 8-tracks. Rick Clark comments, early show. Wish I could watch live, but it's wifey time. And to that I say, nothing wrong with that. You know what they say, wifey comes first, happy wife. You know the rest. And then I already mentioned Tom Williams. Thank you for letting me know about the great Richard Moll passing away, who played Bull in the original Night Court. Just talked about him. But let's get back to this character actor, Clifton James. I want to play another clip of him from James Bond. If not for this guy, would we have a Sheriff Buford T. Justice and Smokey the Bandit? I don't think so. Played by the great Jackie Gleason. Let me just play another clip of Clifton James.
How about demonstration, boy? Certainly, sir.
From the man with the golden gun.
Now, I know you.
Oh, no.
You're that secret agent. That English secret agent from England.
Hello, welcome to Movie Film. I'm here with my friend John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And this is our tribute video to Clifton James. If you don't know who that is, then you haven't watched enough TV shows and movies from the 70s and 80s. He's an actor most well known for his portrayal as Sheriff J.W. Pepper in the James Bond films Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun. Want to give us a bio, John?
Yeah, no problem. George Clifton James was born on May 29, 1920 in Spokane, Washington. He was the oldest of 5 siblings and the only boy. His family lost all their money at the start of the Great Depression and moved to Gladstone, just outside of Portland, Oregon, where James's maternal grandparents lived. In the 1930s, James got work with the Civilian Conservation Corps. Then in World War II, from January 1942 until August 1945, Clifton James served as a combat infantry platoon sergeant in the 163rd Infantry, 41st Division, United States Army. He was a decorated veteran, getting the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and 2 Purple Hearts. According to his daughter, Lynn, he rarely talked about the war and never described the events leading to him receiving the Silver Star. One of his 2 Purple Hearts came when a bullet pierced his helmet and zipped around the inside of it to come out and split his nose. That's absolutely remarkable. Miraculous is the only word that accurately describes that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in the Battle of Wakdi in New Guinea, he was sent down to the beach for water. He came under fire from the Japanese and crawled under a dock for safety. Bullets blew up a nearby truck tire, and fragments hit him in the mouth, knocking out his teeth and breaking his jaw in 2 places. After the war, James attended and graduated from the University of Oregon. Inspired by his love of film and acting, he moved to New York City and began an acting career first on Broadway and then entering into film. He, despite being born in the Northwest, mastered an impeccable and unmistakable Southern accent. And one of his first significant roles playing a Southerner was as a cigar-chomping prison floor walker in the 1967 classic Cool Hand Luke. Obviously, he's best remembered for playing the stereotypical redneck policeman sheriff, J.W. Pepper, in the James Bond films. He also basically played the same character in Superman 2 in 1980. Although his name is never mentioned, he was simply referred to as the sheriff. In his later years, he spent a lot of his days either with his family in Oregon or with his family down in Florida in the Delray Beach area. He passed away on April the 15th, 2007 in Gladstone, Oregon, at the age of 96 with complications from diabetes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you called me and you told me that he had passed away a few weeks ago, and I was shocked. I just couldn't believe it because I had no idea that he was still alive.
It was something that shocked me also. The fact that he was still alive, not the fact that he died.
I did not think he would make it to 96. I mean, you see him in those James Bond movies, and he looks like he's already a step away from death.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he was in the best shape. Even in pictures that I've seen of him in more recent years, it doesn't look like after those movies he got into great shape. He basically stayed exactly the same.
Yeah, and we're not trying to pick on him or anything, but, I mean, generally, he was a little bit older in those movies and not in the greatest shape, and he ended up surpassing quite a few people here that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we're trying to say is it's really amazing to us that his longevity was as it was. Certainly, I wouldn't have expected him to outlive the people that he did.
Speaking of those people, I might as well get to that right now. I wrote down a little list of people involved with the James Bond franchise we've also lost in recent years. Clifton James' first James Bond movie was also Roger Moore's first James Bond movie, Live and Let Die. Two of his co-stars in that movie, Jeffrey Holder, who played Baron Samedi, died in 2014 at the age of 84, and he was like the voodoo priest. Me and John like to refer to him as Papa Shango, as we are also wrestling nerds. The other henchman in the movie, the one with the robotic arm that had a claw hand, his name was Teehee Johnson. He was played by Julius Harris, and he died in 2004 at the age of 81. Clifton James came back to do another James Bond movie, The Man with the Golden Gun. He reprised his character of J.W. Pepper. I don't think we can say that name without doing the accent.
No.
And the star of that movie, Christopher Lee, who also happens to be Ian Fleming's step-cousin in real life.
Did not know that.
Yep, they're related. The creator of James Bond, Ian Fleming. Christopher Lee died in 2015 at the age of 93, so he almost made it to Clifton James's age. And then on the list of movies that Clifton James has also played as Southern Sheriff in is Silver Streak, where he co-starred with Richard Kiel, who is also famous for being in the James Bond movies. Richard Kiel died in 2014 at the age of 74. So I guess we're just losing all of the actors from the 70s now. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder are also gone from Silver Streak. Let me give a little list of the movies or roles that Clifton James has played a Southern Sheriff in, and you'll see he's definitely got typecast after that James Bond role. Clifton James has played a Southern Sheriff in the following: Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, Silver Streak, Superman 2, The Reavers, Dukes of Hazzard, Talk to Me, and 2 episodes of The A-Team, one in which he played a warden and the other one a sheriff.
It's actually kind of funny. I didn't realize. I recently went back and watched a lot of the Dukes of Hazzard episodes, and I didn't realize at the time. I knew that the sheriff was kind of changing a few times. The guy who played the sheriff normally, James Best, also known as his character, Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane, the actor was having some issues with the production company or whoever, and so he didn't play the sheriff for a few episodes, and they had several other individuals come in and try to fill that role while they were working things out. And one of the actors was Clifton James, and I remember seeing him in those episodes, but when I was watching it, I guess I never put 2 and 2 together and was like, oh wow, it's J.W. Pepper.
Yeah, every time I see him in anything, I get excited and I shout, it's JW. And it surprised me when we were looking him up, being able to do that accent the way he does. He's always the Southern Sheriff, but here's a guy who's from New York.
From Washington.
I thought it was a lifelong New Yorker is what I read.
No, he was from Washington State, but still not anywhere near the South.
Oh, well, whoops.
He spent a lot of time in the state of New York through his stage acting career, obviously, with that being Broadway, the hub of that.
So Clifton James to us is an actor that doesn't get a lot of praise. Maybe
he holds a special place in our heart. Maybe not everybody looks at him that way, but with our love of James Bond movies, there's just a soft spot in the old heart for Clifton James. I know for me, I'm very proud of my Southern roots, and so I really enjoy that character. A lot of Southerners may say, oh, that's offensive to be portraying a hillbilly type sheriff or what. All that stuff is nonsense. I think it's fun to be able to have fun with the stereotypes instead of always being offended at everything. And I think he really had a lot of fun playing that role. I think you could see the passion when he played that role, and I appreciate that. So I think what Brandon's trying to say is we have a soft spot in our heart for that character and that actor, and we wanted to make sure that we gave a little tribute to him because the man deserves his due.
And his cousin Billy Bob did own the fastest boat in the river.
Yeah, and also we wanted to bring up his legitimate hero status as a veteran of World War II. Those stories about his Purple Hearts are absolutely incredible.
Getting your mouth blown off and then going on to become an actor is pretty impressive.
Getting your mouth blown off and chewing tobacco afterward doesn't sound like a good idea, but...
Well, if it's already been blown off, then why not? Thanks for listening. This is our tribute to Clifton James. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, fellas. That's from Movie Film Presents on YouTube. Really appreciate it. I'm going to add a couple things about that great character actor, Clifton James. after I play this brief clip from Live and Let Die, his first appearance.
Toby, I got me a regular Ben Hur down here. Doing 95 minimum. Need any help, J.W.? Hell no!
What the?
You got a set of wheels, you just won't quit, boy. If there's yours, that is, spin around, boy.
God, he's talking to a black guy too. That's not cool. But that's obviously from a time compressed, sped up print of his first appearance in the James Bond franchise, Live and Let Die, which had the great title track by Paul McCartney and Wings, the song of the same title. Now, he did get typecast as a cop, but hell, he played a cop way back in 1967 on Mannix. So he had been playing a police officer for a long time, typically a sheriff. But can't you see in that scene the similarities between Buford T. Justice, played by Jackie Gleason in Smokey and the Bandit, and that character, Clifton James's Sheriff Culpepper, J.W. Pepper. Clifton was born on Saturday, May 29th, 1920 in Spokane, Washington State, as the fellows mentioned. I don't want to reiterate everything they said. The first clip I played was from The Man with the Golden Gun, where he says, "Are you that secret agent?" That was his second appearance. I know a lot of you already know that, but isn't it funny how in Superman 2, the fellows talked about that a moment ago, he played another hillbilly sheriff and who had a foul mouth a little bit, not terribly much so, but he's like, "You got to learn to kick ass if you want to be a peacemaker," he says in Superman 2 to his deputy. And he also played the same character in The Fall Guy. This is new information, not online. I mean, I think they might mention his guest star, but here's a film print of it. Clifton James was in a season 2 episode with Delta Burke and Denny Miller titled The Mighty Myron and the Orangutan from Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, the Clint Eastwood movies, which also co-starred Jeffrey Lewis, Juliette Lewis's dad, as Philo Beddoes' buddy. But there's a film print I had imported from Belgium. Yeah, from a guy named William Stolen in Belgium. St. Nicholas. Yeah, so Mighty Myron from November 17th, 1982. By the way, it's streaming on Amazon Prime because it's a season 2 episode of The Fall Guy. But yeah, there's a 16 millimeter film print of it. And he's playing the costume looks the same as it did in Superman 2. The blue police officer's uniform. There's the reel. I remember this guy sent it to me on a core. I had to transfer it to a reel. That's the way he sent all of his films. I had a lot of films imported for this guy in Belgium, like $6 Million Man episodes and Incredible Hulk episodes, which are rare on film. In the U.S., they were distributed on videotape. They were the first major studio, Universal was, to start distributing TV shows to stations from their studio to TV stations on videotape. So overseas, they didn't catch up back in those days. So that's why you had rare Universal shows on film, usually in other countries. Like Australia had a lot of Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man, and Hulk episodes imported from Australia back in the early 2000s. But 20th Century Fox, which, is the studio that made The Fall Guy, they had still used film way up until like 1986 to distribute to television stations. So I'll put that up later. Clifton James. Just some of his highlights. In 1966, he guest starred as Tenor Jackson, a successful poker player, later killed for his winnings in the episode The Wrong Man, opposite Carol O'Connor, future Archie Bunker himself, in the episode from season 12, episode 7, The Wrong Man. So, despite being born in the Northwest and spending much of his life in New York State, where he was an actor studio member of long standing, he was always cast as a Southerner because he did an accent so well. I already talked about the fellows talked about the Dukes of Hazzard situation. I'm almost done talking about Clifton James, our character actor of the week, new feature here on the Podblast. Clifton James was married twice, to Donna Lee Beach from 1948 to 1950, with whom he had one child, and to Lori Harper from 1951 until her death in 2015. That's a nice long marriage, with whom he had 5 children. I guess he was Catholic. He resided in Gladstone, Oregon, and died from complications of diabetes on Tuesday, April 15th, tax day. Used to be before you could file these extensions. Tuesday, April 15th, 2017, at the age of 96, a nice long life. And I said he already appeared in Mannix. He appeared in 1967, season 2 of Mannix as a cop, in the kind of the pretty much the same character as he did in the James Bond movies and in Superman 2. He was in a $6 Million Man season 2 episode way back in 1974. He was in that Fall Guy episode I talked about, The Mighty Myron, which is streaming on Amazon Prime. So that concludes our initial character actor highlight of the week. What did I call it? Character actor spotlight. Yep, that's what I called it. So this is going to be a shorter Podblast. It's not going to be a 4-hour extravaganza. You have to, if you care to listen to it at all. I always pack it with information. Believe me, you'll be glad if you hear everything. I know I'm a bit much in one dose. You know, that's how I say you get more information in one Podblast than you do in most shows in a whole month. So just hit the pause button, restart it, at your own pace. But you will hear some clips beyond me just flapping my nasty mouth. You will hear some information, and I keep it as factual as I can. Item. Time for the old-fashioned expression of the week, which could fall into the TV cliche of the week. I'll just mold them together in the interest of time. The expression, and I did feature this before, but since we talked about the Cowsills, let's talk about the expression, till the cows come home. Cows generally are never in a hurry. The idiom, till the cows come home, has been in use since at least the 16th century and may have originated in the Scottish Highlands, where cows are allowed to graze for months at a time before they meander home in the fall. So that's the end of that. I did want to mention, getting back to guest Louise Palanker's documentary on the Cowsills, which is streaming on Amazon Prime. I said that about 12 times now. It's called Family Band, The Cowsill Story. I did mention her. Maybe I did. I don't think I did. I really liked how they all came together, the family, in 2004. They were invited by the Boston Red Sox to sing the national anthem at Fenway Park. And they did. They did a fantastic job. And in the documentary, you see them in the hotel practicing, and they bicker. And that was a really positive aspect to the documentary. There's a little bit of sadness in that documentary. And some of it hit home because I lost a dear friend. We'll talk about it at the very, very end of the show, named Shanna. She was a friend of mine, beautiful friend, very positive person. Man, standing room only at the funeral. People were lined up in the hallway. It was just overflowing with love for this lady, my former neighbor and friend, Shanna. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let me get back on track to the nostalgic fun. I got my fake rant of the week. This is a personal one. I know nobody cares. You want to hear about the nostalgia, not me. As I said the last time I did a YouTube live, I'm not going to talk much about my family. I'm not going to talk about me that much because nobody gives a crap. They care about the nostalgia. But this might apply to you. If you're a guy who's starting to have thinning hair, I want to know if you've experienced this. I call it the tingle, not to be confused with the Tingler movie I saw with Al and Tom in Atlanta, Georgia, on the big screen at the Plaza Theater, which is a historic movie theater that George LaFont opened way back many decades ago. He just died, by the way. No, the tingle. Whenever I feel a tingle on my scalp, that's hair follicles dying. And I know I'm right. It doesn't happen often. It's usually when, I don't know if there's a connection. I don't know what triggers it. I was going to say when there's danger, not like the Spidey sense, fictional Spider-Man. I'm not trying to be delusional and say I have a sixth sense. I don't. But there is definitely a tingle I feel. And I'm starting to get like Ted Danson at a big old bald spot in the back of his head. That's what I'm getting. And I'm sure you've seen it when I've fooled around with my collectibles in the background. And it's driving me up the wall. I will never wear a hairpiece. Just at least my hair has not gone gray yet. But dang, I feel a tingle, and then sure enough, like within a matter of days, some hair falls out. And I really think that sensation of the tingle is hair dying, hair follicles. So have you ever experienced a tingle and associated that with hair loss? I've never read anything in a medical journal. I know I'm right, because whenever I feel that, whatever part of my scalp, then there'll be like a little bit of thinning hair. So I dread that feeling. When I feel that, I'm like, crap, I'm losing more hair. Okay, let's get on with the, oh, I forgot to get a nostalgic prop. I see it right over there, out of camera out of camera range. I'll get it in a second. The nostalgic toy of the week that I pulled for you from my collection. But I'm going to play a little bit of a song. I play this song a lot, so I hope longtime listeners don't get offended. My wonderful game show people, I hope you don't get offended. By the way, I didn't mention that Richard Moll was on Super Password and the $100,000 Pyramid. He did a lot of game shows during his hiatus from Night Court in the 80s, in between seasons. And his hair typically would be growing out. And so he looked off character. You know, he hadn't shaved his head yet. And I liked the way he played Password. He was a good player. I love that game. I love all games pertaining to words. I was just talking about that with Curtis of the Retro Zest podcast at lunch today. I asked him if he plays board games with his wife or with his son, and he said he did. And he typically plays word games. I guess that's why we get along so well. I love playing word games. I love playing Scrabble. I play that once a week, most weeks. When I visit my parents, I go to their house once a week, and I'll always play with Mom. Dad doesn't care to play. I play with Mom, and she is a great competitor. And also that game, you know, you're adding the points on Scrabble. You know, you're using math skills, basic math skills, but math skills nonetheless when you play that game. And a lot of it is luck. You know, you want to get the Z or the J or the Q, the pieces that have the most point values, like 10 and 8 respectively. A J has a score of 8 points. And then you want to go for that triple word or triple letter when you have those high dollar points. That's a key to winning, but it's all luck of the draw. Okay, I'm sorry. That's boring as hell. I'm going to play a little bit of this song by the Tubes, She's a Beauty. I know I play that a lot, but I want to get the nostalgic toy of the week, which is our next feature coming right up. right, we've heard that before. I'm going to stop the clip right there. Man, if you're watching on camera, I'm not talking about Patty Duke. That has nothing to do with that song. There's a book I got, a vintage book from the 60s. I think it's hilarious, the title. Can you see that? I'll just read it for the listeners. Patty Duke and the Adventure of the Chinese Junk. And that's going to tie in to something we're going to talk about later in the show about Chinese food. Okay, so it's time for the nostalgic toy of the week. It has nothing to do with Patty Duke. It is the Fisher-Price and the Kenner Viewer. Now, what was this? This was literally a hand-cranked device you could watch Super 8 film on, no sound, of television shows and popular movies. This is why I became a film collector when I was a kid. I had a super deluxe version, the Snoopy Viewer, which was battery operated with a light bulb, and it looked pretty big. You would put the cartridge in. I can't get the cartridge out. You literally hand crank this thing. Can you hear that cranking? Listen, listeners. You look in the viewer and you can see the action. This is a $6 million Man cartridge I'm watching right now. The Bionic Man in action. This is before Star Wars. And that is a scene from the very first 1 hour episode of the $6 Million Man titled Population Zero, where Steve Austin takes the post of a fence, pulls it out of the ground with the cement piece attached, and hurls it at a van that the bad guys are in with this jamming equipment, and he blows up the van with like this post of a fence. And that's the clip in this cartridge. But Fisher-Price actually introduced this toy. Let me just quickly tell you about the history of the nostalgic toy of the week. I was going to do Viewmaster reels, decided to save that for next week. I shouldn't give that away. Someone will copy me. I have a lot of copycats, and I appreciate that. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. There's a guy who all of a sudden is using the medical center theme for one of his segments. Got that from me. He didn't even know the show. It's okay. Hey, I still like you. That's cool, man. You're not very creative. It's all right. All right. The Fisher-Price Movie Viewer was introduced in 1973. The Movie Viewer was very popular both because it does not require batteries, bulbs, nor any other replacement requirements unless you had the deluxe version like I did. And because Fisher-Price manufactured several popular movie cartridges that appeal to children. Now, here's a list of the cartridges. I don't want to go through all of it. It'd be really boring. But there were some Walt Disney cartridges of movies and cartoons, including the movie The Black Hole in 1980, The Rescuers in 1979. There was even a Sesame Street movie viewer. Anyway, that's the Fisher-Price side. Bambi, Snow White, Dumbo, Cinderella. I could go on and on and on. They made a lot of them, Fisher-Price, including even Spider-Man and Sunfire in 1986 movie cartridge. But I like the Kenner stuff because they had a Star Wars movie cartridge series. And of course, I have them. They're at my parents' house in storage in a tub. But it was a lot of fun to watch this little doohickey. And that was something that went away with the invention of the VHS, which of course Betamax had been around for years, primarily in the professional sector. It was a very expensive item for ordinary households to acquire originally, just like anything else. You know, you have to wait a little while for a product to be out before the price drops significantly. But I remember VHS machines really became affordable around 1985. Anyway, so that's my nostalgic toy of the week. And let me see where the nostalgic treat of the week. I have one I've never featured before. Oh my gosh. I have another fake rant of the week. And, you know, I talked about how a good classic friend of mine passed away. And it was a beautiful service, but this is just in general. This is just in general. So please, I mean, no disrespect to anyone that did a fantastic job sending off my friend Shanna. But my fake rant of the week is about open casket funerals. That's not the way I want to remember someone. Do you want that to be the last memory? My grandma, my mom's mom, when she passed away, was an open casket funeral. And I wish I hadn't looked. I looked, and of course, that's not the memory I think of the most, but that's the last memory I have of my grandma. Now, how do you feel about an open casket funeral? We don't really generally talk religion on the show. I try not to talk politics or even sports. I try to keep it nostalgia only and neutral ground. But, you know, there was one before the service, and I couldn't look at this funeral I went to on Tuesday. I could not look because I choose not to remember my friend that way. No disrespect to anyone that decided to do that. That's just me. How do you feel about it? Let me know in the comments or just write me. So let's move on to something else. Another fake rant of the week. A lot of these are actual real rants. I call it the fake rant of the week because a lot of these radio guys just rant about stuff they're not really that fired up about. It's just shtick for their show. All right, let me play a classic commercial, and this will tie into another rant. Remember this commercial? Listen.
How do you get shirts so clean, Mr. Lee?
Ancient Chinese secret.
My husband, some hotshot. Here's his ancient Chinese secret. New improved Calgon. Calgon's 2 water softeners soften wash water so detergents clean better. In hardest water, Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner. You need more Calgon. Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner.
Ancient Chinese secret. Well, the ancient Chinese secret ingredient, let's talk about 2 of them in Chinese food. You ready? If you're eating Chinese food, you might want to not listen to this part of the show or just exit out entirely. A lot of people eat Chinese food on the weekend. I love Chinese food. I'm not against Chinese food. I'm not against Chinese people. I'm not. But are you ready for the fake rant as it pertains to the ancient Chinese secret of Chinese food? It's 2 ingredients: insects and urine. Insects and urine are the secret ancient Chinese secret ingredient. Ancient Chinese secret in Chinese food. Only kidding, I hope. But if you get mushu pork, some of the things in there are crunchy. I swear it's bugs. And it tastes, I've never tasted urine. I can't need, unless never mind. I can't go there. Family show. Let's put my tongue somewhere where there had been urine. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I said it. Oh God. Mom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, I'm saying this to be controversial as a joke, but I hope I'm kidding. But sometimes those mushu pork ingredients, depending on where you're eating, it tastes like what I would imagine urine would taste like in the crunchy bugs. So I'm sorry. That was my gross out segment of the week, which I will not continue again. I do want to have another little feature. This is a little more family friendly. The Lost Movie of the Week. This is a movie you can't find anymore streaming or even in a physical form, but it was a really cool movie of the early 1980s. It's not a scary movie because we're coming out of the Halloween season. Let me play a trailer for this movie.
His name is Lyle Swan. He's racing against the clock.
Stand by for automatic.
In more ways than one.
Perimeter violation. Sector 4.
Terry, is that for real?
Because this ride, instead of taking him 1,000 miles forward, will take him 105 years backward.
Dr. Savage, wheel! Sector 2. Perimeter violations.
Abort. Stand back.
Time Rider, the adventure of Lyle Swan.
If I'm right, sir, he stepped out around 1875.
Man, am I glad to see you.
He just happened to be in the right place at the wrong time.
I was wondering if maybe you could show me on this map here where I am.
And fate gave him a present.
Are you okay?
Of the past.
Where are you going?
Only trouble was, he didn't know it.
What was that? Where'd it go? I don't know. Hey, what the hell's happening here, huh?
He didn't understand the people.
Hey, why are those guys shooting at me like that?
And they didn't understand him.
Where'd these come from? I'm thinking to us mostly. See, I hang with technoid types. We party and they come up with all this Bonnaroo boogie.
In short, everything was different.
Take off your clothes.
Well,
What?
everything.
You heard me, Mr. Swan.
Time Rider, the adventure of Lyle Swan.
General Lee had that machine, we won the war.
The past present fantasy of a desert racer, a beautiful gunslinger,
Where are you from, my friend?
Anoka Park, L.A.
a renegade priest,
Beautiful, senor. Where did you get this? Got it at an Exxon station.
and assorted bad guys.
Jumped up and down on it. Up and down. Kicked it.
Time Rider, the adventure of Lyle Swan, an off-road racer who's way, way off the road.
I loved that movie. There were a lot of character actors in that film, as well as the main actor, Fred Ward, who's no longer with us, who did other movies like the Remo Williams movie. But it was released way back on December 11th, 1982. That was the premiere of this film. It was a 94-minute long movie. It only earned $3.6 million at the box office, but I saw it twice at the movies, in first run and then at the second run, Dollar Cinema. I really liked it, and it's hard to find on Blu-ray. The Blu-rays typically go for $100. And there was a release that was censored on DVD. There was a shot at the end. It's a PG movie, but there was a shot at where the bad guy, it's a time travel movie. I think Back to the Future owes a little bit of props to be honest with you. And Back to the Future, of course, was released in 1985. But there's a scene where a bad guy's legs are severed by a helicopter blade when a helicopter goes through the time portal back into the Old West and rescues our hero. And all you see is a shot of these severed ankles. And that was censored from the DVD release. Can you believe it? Here I am praising and encouraging you to not do away with DVD technology. If you have a DVD player, don't get rid of it. Don't be fooled by the streaming gods into thinking it's obsolete. It's only obsolete if you make it obsolete. Same with music. Have you noticed how the streaming rates are going up dramatically? Netflix is the most expensive of all. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, folks. Let me see if I can find. What was I going to do for you now? Oh, I was going to look up and see if I can find a copy of Time Rider. I should have prepared this. I couldn't be late because I have my guest. We were on a hard timetable with the Zoom call at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific their time. So I couldn't prepare everything I wanted to for this week's edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. But let me look up on Amazon what Time Rider is going for on Blu-ray, and I'll look on eBay too. I'm just curious because it's been a while since I checked. I'll check Amazon first. I don't have this. $154.95 is what Time Rider is going for currently on Blu-ray on Amazon. Wow. You can get a VHS tape for $34.99. And it says DVD from $60, but it's probably the censored DVD. You don't want that. Why don't they re-release this, man? That's a nostalgic flick. That was a good flick. Now, let me look on eBay really quickly at Time Rider eBay. Let's see what's going on here with eBay. Hold on, folks. Bear with me, please. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend as I stall. Isn't that just so lame? Like a stand-up comic saying, how you doing? How are you doing, everybody? Trying to warm up the crowd. Hey! It's like just a throwaway line. Time Rider Blu-ray. Let me look up the Blu-ray because I know that's the version that's uncensored. But how lame when they censor a DVD? Why would you do that? It's home video. You're not censored when it comes to home video. There's no FCC breathing down your neck. I see one Blu-ray on eBay is live for $74.99 with $6 shipping. Buy it now. Price. Well, hell, I see one I should go for. $40 free shipping for Time Rider Blu-ray. Let me just make a note of that. Oh, it's a Spanish import. No. I bought one of these once and it won't play. They say I have a DVD player. Dracula. I have a DVD player that will play any disc in the world. There's different regions. Region 2 is Europe. Region 1 is us in Japan. And you have to have a region-free player to play them. I ordered the James Bond collection of films on Blu-ray for cheap from Region 2 in England. Got them for under $100. It was a great deal, and they all played except for one, Quantum of Solace, and I got that separately at a used Blu-ray store and DVD store, bookstore on the cheap. So I have the complete Bond collection for virtually very little bit of money. But I see Time Rider $69.99 buy it now, free shipping. I mean, that's a lot for an old Blu-ray. $100, $119.99 someone wants with free shipping for Time Rider. You get the point. So we can stop talking about that. But dang, that movie has just become so rare. I don't know why they don't reissue that. Time Rider. That was a good time travel Western movie. And you know, Back to the Future Part 3 kind of took some info, took a little bit of the script of Time Rider when they said it in the Old West. Am I wrong? No, I'm right. Am I right? Am I right or what? Yeah, Chance, you're right. I know I'm right. Thank you. By the way, I got to tease our friend Alan Sanders, who's a co-host on BK on the Air. He's tried to correct me twice when I called in to correct something that wasn't true that was said, or to answer a question. I'll give you an example. Barry King asked what shows preceded The Love Boat on Saturday night on ABC. He knew that Fantasy Island was after The Love Boat. It was Saturday night, 9 o'clock Love Boat, 10 o'clock Fantasy Island when we were kids, Gen Xers. But what was before? I looked it up in my Bible. My TV Bible I reference a lot. And for 3 of the years in the early 80s was T.J. Hooker. And I called in to Barry, who's a fan of Shatner. He worships William Shatner. And I said, you're going to like the show. And he guessed. We weren't on the air, just talking. He said, he finally guessed when I said, it's a show you like and you talk about. And he goes, T.J. Hooker? I said, you're right. And so when he came back from the break, he said, thanks to Chance for calling in and mentioning that it was T.J. Hooker. And then Alan Sanders says, no, it wasn't. And he gets out his phone and he's trying to like shame me or something. Never try to correct me, bud. Look, I like you, what you do on the radio, but stay in your lane when it comes to nostalgia, because you don't know half the shit you're talking about when it comes to nostalgia. And then the other thing he tried to correct me on that was wrong was, I don't want to mention the name because I like this guy that does a segment on that show. And he said that Dominique Frontier scored the original TV theme to The Fugitive. That's not true. And it's not the guy's fault. That's another falsehood on the internet. So I call in, I said, no, Pete Rugolo scored the Fugitive theme. There's a soundtrack compact disc, which goes for at least $100, I might add. The compact disc on Amazon and on eBay commands over $100 generally. It was Pete Rugolo. Everybody knows that. And he says, that's not what it says on my phone. And he never did a retraction. So shame on you, Alan Sanders. Look, I like you, but you're 0 for 2, buddy, trying to correct my correction. So don't be doing that, or I'll come looking for you. I'm just kidding. Let's talk about, something we talk about every week. Let me get to it right fast, quick. Should have had this clip pulled up for you. Hang on a second. Time for birthdays, of course. Just a few. I want to talk about October 28th birthdays. We got to talk about Bill Gates. He was born October 28th, 1955 in Seattle, Washington. Talk about making a difference. He and his former wife, Bill and Melinda Gates, started a foundation that's done a lot of good. Now, he's a controversial person, so that's all I'll say is happy birthday to you. Hell, I'm using a computer that your company basically created. Happy birthday to Julia Roberts, Smyrna's own. I live in the Vinings area, Smyrna, Georgia, to be exact. So she's from where I'm at. She was born October 28th, 1967 in Smyrna, Georgia. Of course, her brother hit the scene first before she did. Eric Roberts, the troubled Eric Roberts. He did a movie called Gypsy that was great in the late 1970s. Nobody's seen it. It's a really cool movie. The current Joker, one of the current Jokers, Joaquin Phoenix, was born October 28th, 1974 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I did not know that. I didn't know he's a Puerto Rican by birth. That's cool. What a weird guy. But he did a great job in his performance as, I like this lady too, as Johnny Cash with Reese Witherspoon. Oh, Reese is in one of my scary movies I want to recommend. I haven't recommended yet for the Halloween season. I know that's probably in your rear view mirror by now. Fear from 1996. That's a good scary movie. I love that. That's just a really good revenge movie. I love that film. I want to say happy birthday to Annie Potts, I really like her in Young Sheldon. And she was, of course, in Designing Women. And then, hell, she was in a movie with Mark Hamill, a terrible movie called Corvette Summer back in 1978. The first movie that was released starring Mark Hamill after Star Wars back in the 70s. But Annie Potts, happy birthday, ma'am. You're awesome. You're award-winning, born October 28th, 1952. And I liked her on Designing Women as well, the show I just mentioned. Lauren Holly, Jim Carrey's ex-girlfriend, was born in Bristol, Pennsylvania on October 28th, 1963. I'm just going to mention a few. This isn't the birthday show, but I like to mention some. Happy heavenly birthday to the great Charlie Daniels of the Charlie Daniels Band. The Devil Went Down to Georgia. He was born October 28th, 1936 in Wilmington, North Carolina, right there on the beach, where Al Hardy's from, if you're watching Al. He passed away July 6th, 2020. What a great performer he was. Big man. The big boy. Daphne Zuniga. She's in town for the big show as we're live at Peachtree Corners. She's best known for Melrose Place and, of course, Spaceballs, directed by Mel Brooks. She was born October 28th, 1962 in San Francisco, California. She was funny and good and easy on the eyes. Dennis Franz, who used to like to show his nasty butt on NYPD Blue. It made waves in 1993. Really pushed the envelope with the censors. He was born October 28th, 1944 in Maywood, Illinois, but a great character actor. He was in Dressed to Kill. He always played a cop. Guess he got typecast as well, just like our character actor of the week, but he's also a character actor, of course, in his own right. Dennis Franz. That was a weird movie, Dressed to Kill, with Angie Dickinson and Nancy Allen and Michael Caine. Oh, I won't give it away the surprise ending. What a bizarre movie that was. And ahead of its time. Thelma Hopkins, I like her a lot. She was in Bosom Buddies. She can sing, she can act. Born in 1948 in Louisville, Kentucky on October 28th. Happy birthday to you, ma'am. And Andy Richter, Conan O'Brien's sidekick, was born in 1966 in Grand Rapids, Michigan on October 28th. Jack Sue. He's been gone for a long time, but he was, of course, in Barney Miller. The Asian Gentleman. He was born October 28th, 1917 in Oakland, California. He passed away on January 11th, 1979. They had a nice send-off for him in Barney Miller with clips of some of his best moments in that classic sitcom. I want to talk about October 29th in a moment. Oh, happy birthday to Cheryl Underwood. I like her a lot. She's on The Talk on CBS. She was a stand-up comic. I played some of her comedy. I didn't know how blue she was in the early days. Dropping F-bombs, talking about sex and stuff. She's a Southern lady born in Little Rock, Arkansas, October 28, 1963. Happy birthday to you, Cheryl. And she spells her name with an S, S-H, not C-H for Cheryl. She's funny. And nice. Let's see. And she has a big radio empire, too, if you don't know. Urban Radio. Let's see here. Got to restart the music. So that's all I'm going to highlight for October 28th. And I'll just briefly talk about October 29th. Let me queue up my list here for that day. October 29th. By the way, Stanley Livingston's daughter Samantha was born on October 29th. Samantha Livingston, happy birthday to you. Bob Ross, I didn't know he died on the 4th of July, 1995. He was born in 1942 on October 29th. The painter with the afro. He was a really peaceful, great guy, great artist. Winona Ryder, born October 29th, 1971 in Winona, Minnesota. Is that right? Winona, born in Winona. Maybe that's why they named her that. Gabrielle Union, black actress, born October 29th, 1972 in Omaha, Nebraska. She's very talented. Richard Dreyfuss from Jaws, born October 29th, 1947 in Brooklyn, New York. Happy birthday to you, sir. And he was in one of my favorites, Piranha 3D from 2010, a guilty pleasure, scary comedy movie. And there's a lot of comedy in that, folks. Kate Jackson, talked about her in my interview. She had won the role in Kramer versus Kramer, but couldn't fulfill it because of her contract with Columbia and the producers of Charlie's Angels. Kate Jackson, born October 29th, 1948 in Birmingham, Alabama. She, of course, before Charlie's Angels, she was in The Rookies on ABC. Incidentally, I've talked about this. The Rookies started the show SWAT, starring Steve Forrest, the original version, not the CBS version, which was recently canceled. And it was a 2-hour episode in February 1975 titled SWAT. 2-hour episode. Most of the shots in the opening credits of SWAT are from that episode. It's never been seen since the original air date. On DVD, they only released season 1 and 2 of The Rookies, and that was a season 3 episode. And they did release, I have it, SWAT, the original series, on DVD, and it was only like $10. It's still really inexpensive. You can get all of them, but there's only a season and a half. It was prematurely canceled. There were lunch boxes made for that show, but that was a very violent series. I think that's why Fred Silverman axed it, because the ratings were still pretty good. But in that DVD set, they didn't include the 2-hour pilot, and I've been dying to see that. So I'm looking for it on film. I have so many things on film that have never been released, never streamed, never been released on, hell, going back to VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, or Blu-ray, or 4K. It's on film, baby. Like a movie Steel I talked about with the star of the Retros podcast, Curtis Lanclow. We were talking about a movie called Steel because what's her name? The star of Too Close for Comfort, the sexy blonde. She's going to be on the show, by the way. She's already committed. I wanted to give time because Curtis interviewed her, Sarah Rush, the actress. God, now, if I'm blanking her name, if she's watching, she ain't going to want to come on here. Let me look up. Lydia Cornell, that's it. I don't even need to look. It came into my stupid mind. Lydia Cornell was in Steel, and she had just a walk-on role, no line. And Terry Kaiser, the future Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, the dead guy, he grabs her butt when she gets out of his Corvette. He's a ladies' man, Terry Kaiser, in the movie Steel, starring Lee Majors. And it was shot in Lexington, Kentucky, and one of the stuntmen sadly died. He was performing a stunt, a high-fall record stunt, and he jumped from this building that was under construction, and the airbag burst, and he died. A.J. Bakunis, and the movie was dedicated in his name, the stuntman who died in that film. But that is a great underrated movie I have on film that was never released anywhere else. It's not a bad movie. Steel. It was released on VHS. Hey, I got it right here. Let me show it for the viewers. Sorry, listeners. Look, you can laugh all you want. Don't believe me? You need to see this movie. It's action-packed. Jennifer O'Neill's in the cast. George Kennedy's in the cast from Cool Hand Luke, which we talked about earlier tonight. And it's about construction workers who are trying to build a building before, it's a race against time, before they get shut down. And they're trying to win a contract. And it sounds like a hokey plot. It's not. It's about teamwork, and there's patriotism. Look at the tagline on the back. It says, if they can't build it, drink it, love it, or fight it, forget it. It says right there. But it's actually a very good movie. Albert Salmi is in it, who sadly, God, he was in a murder-suicide. He killed his wife and killed himself. I'm not trying to be morbid. It's just a fact. He was known as, for the Lost in Space fans, as Captain Tucker in season 1 and 2 of Lost in Space, in a guest starring reoccurring role in those two episodes of that show. But this was a really good movie. A lot of booze in it. Oh, and Roger Mosley's in it. Future TC in Magnum PI, and then Hunter Von Leer. He was in the Halloween movies, at least Halloween 1 and 2. He's like, and he's in there. She's dead. He played the best friend of Roger Mosley's character. I don't want to give too much away. There's a really dramatic scene. They're buddies, and they're always betting. I bet you. And one of them dies. It's a real dramatic scene and a good movie, Steel. And see, one thing, again, another thing you can't stream. I got it on film. I got it on VHS, and I think it's on YouTube from VHS. So the quality's not great. Let me look at some other birthdays for October 29th, and then we'll move on and start to wrap the show. I really want to thank our guests again. Fritz Coleman, who is very well known in Los Angeles. Hope you learned something if you listen to him. Very intelligent man, as is Louise Palanker, his partner on their podcast, Media Path Podcast. Fantastic actors. Yeah, I was talking about Kate Jackson, and then I digressed into Steel. Yeah. Of course, she was in Scarecrow and Mrs. King. I didn't mention that yet. Oh, yeah, because I was talking about SWAT. Anyway. See if there's anybody else on October 29th that we should mention. And her credit, she did get a credit for Steel, was Lydia Kornikov, because she's like got Russian roots. But she, of course, was Sarah Rush in Too Close for Comfort, the pretty blonde. And I just love her to pieces. And I hope that she comes on the Podblast soon. She said she would, but I dropped the ball. And there's another great guest. If you're out there watching, you know who you are. He's a director. And I said, let's do this summer. And then I got COVID. I have not forgotten. I got to get your contact info. We exchanged pleasantries. You'll love this guest. This is a director who's in the business. He's directed so many sitcoms starting in the 1980s, and he's the son of someone that you know and love. That's all I'm going to say. Man, I really dropped the ball with you, sir, and I'm sorry. It wasn't intentional. That getting COVID last summer really, really threw me off. I guess we'll wrap on birthdays, and I forgot about the clip. I just let the music run out. So, oh, the nostalgic treat of the week. I have a clip. This is a classic commercial. This is a good one. This is a good one. No hubris intended. It's about something we all love, so there's no hubris at all in my saying that. Let's listen to this classic commercial. It's 30 seconds.
It's yum yum fun that is cool and keen, and its name is the Snoopy Snow Cone Machine. You put ice cubes in and get a snow cone out. This is fun. Yum yum fun is what it's all about.
Some assembly required, and you mix the punch flavor.
It's yummy, Snoopy. It's yum yum fun that is cool and keen, and its name is the Snoopy Snow Cone Machine.
Snoopy Snow Cone Machine comes with everything you see here from Hasbro.
I like that jingle, and I love snow cones, and that's what our nostalgic treat of the week is. Snow cones. Let's hear a little bit of history about snow cones, if you don't mind. Just a paragraph or two. Promise it's not going to be long. In the 1850s, the American Industrial Revolution made ice commercially available in the United States. Ice houses in New York would commonly sell ice to states like Florida. To transport the ice to Florida, the ice houses would send a wagon with a huge block of ice down south. The route or route, depending on how you pronounce that word, to Florida would pass right through Baltimore, where children would run up to the wagon and ask for a small scraping of ice. How many times have you heard that from your wife or girlfriend? Can I get some ice? It's hot out here. Get some ice. If you're at a concert or some sort of outdoor event or like a fair, I need some ice, which we gladly do, right, for our women. Anyway, kids would line up in Baltimore to the wagon and ask for a small scraping of ice. Before long, mothers started to make flavoring in anticipation of their children receiving some ice. The first flavor the women made is still a Baltimore favorite. Egg custard. Yeah! Egg custard was an easy flavor to make as the only ingredients were eggs, vanilla, and sugar. Double, yeah! Nasty. So that's your history of the snow cone, a brief history of the snow cone. Nostalgic treat of the week. I mentioned this before, but the future is not here until laser guns are here in the people's hands. Well, I've decided, I mentioned before, I think that's a bad idea because I thought about all the crimes that could be committed and all the terrible things that could be done with a gun that would knock someone out and not permanently harm them, not maim them, not kill them. Just like a stun gun, not the kind like the police have today, you know, the projectiles that electrify someone. I'm talking about like something you saw in Buck Rogers or Star Trek or Star Wars. Star Wars didn't have stun guns. Those were laser guns that would kill you or fry your ass. But, you know, I'm still waiting on the military. I wish the U.S. military would have a laser gun. Watch the Chinese come up with it before we do. But we need to get the military, the U.S. military, some laser guns, and then the future will truly be here. Like I said, folks, you get more information in one show than Nostalgic Podblast than you get in most other shows in a month. It's true. There's a game I like to play. Shall we play a game? War Games reference. I call it taglines. I know some other people are playing taglines, and that's cool. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, and I don't own that concept. But in advertising, there typically will be a tagline for a product. Duh. And so I want to talk about some candy taglines. Again, we've talked about this before. I'm just going to give you a couple. And some of these I've talked about before, but let's talk about it again because not everybody hears every show. Tagline. Think of what candy this is. Isn't life juicy? What do you think that is? Anybody playing live? Anybody want to comment? All right, well, let's hurry it along for anyone listening after the fact. It's Starburst candy. I don't remember that one. And some of these candies have more than one tagline, and I've omitted the easy giveaway one, like melt in your mouth, not in your hand. That's obviously M&M's. Won't even talk about that and insult your intelligence. But here's a good one. Now, it could be candy or gum. G-U-M, gum. This is an easy one. Get the sensation. That's the York's Peppermint Patty, which I didn't like as a kid, but I like it as an adult. I actually like dark chocolate more now than I did before. I didn't like it, but now I like it. Anyway, here's a more difficult one. It's an obscure candy, but it's one that's well known. Tagline, taste the explosion. Taste the explosion, like in your mouth. I'll just tell you, it's space dust, otherwise known as Pop Rocks. Oh, hell, I'm going to play a clip. I have some in my fridge. I've talked about this before. I'm going to pop some in my mouth and hear how it sounds on the microphone real quick. Let me play a song for the listeners while I go get it. I got to go. Hang on a second. I go downstairs and get to my fridge. But let me find. I'll just play the snow cone clip again while it's handy. The commercial. Be right back.
It's yum yum fun that is cool and keen, and its name is the Snoopy Snow Cone Machine. You put ice cubes in and get a snow cone out. This is fun. Yum yum fun is what it's all about.
Some assembly required, and you mix the punch flavor.
It's yummy, Snoopy. It's yum yum fun that is cool and keen, and its name is the Snoopy Snow Cone Machine.
Snoopy Snow Cone Machine comes with everything you see here from Hasbro.
Ding! Okay, I'm going to try to find a Pop Rocks commercial on the fly real quick, and then I'm going to pop this stuff in my mouth. I don't think there is one. I don't remember seeing any Pop Rocks ads. I remember a lot of print ads for Space Dust. Let's see if I can find one. Here's one from the 90s, it says. Is this thing playing?
What are you gonna do? I have a plan. I want you to change my grade.
Why should I do that?
All right, this is something. Oh, good God. This was not what I thought it was. I thought this was a legitimate commercial. It is a YouTube video disguised as a commercial. I can't even describe. Good grief. All right, we're not going to find an ad. I'm just going to go ahead and have a Pop Rock. God. And what's up with this hum? I have a hum. It's driving me up the wall. Oh, I got to get this equipment working right. God bless America. I'm not going to cuss. You get in there, you son of a gun. Okay. Pop Rocks. Let me put a smile on my face and get happy. Come on, get happy. I'm going to open up a pack of Pop Rocks, listeners, and let's listen to how it sounds. You get the point. Tropical Punch Pop Rocks candy. Hope you had a good Halloween if you're listening after Halloween. Taste the explosion. Pop Rocks. Tagline. makes mouths happy. That's Twizzlers. I'm going to do one or two more. Blow your own bubble. That's Bubble Yum. Another tagline, cleans your teeth while it cleans your breath. That's Dentine gum, the sugar-free gum. One of the sugar-free gums. So we'll stop there with the taglines. Now I want to thank Curtis Lanclow. We had lunch today, and he gave me these neat pins, including a Fall Guy pin, because he knows I like that show and have every episode of the Fall Guy in 16mm film. But look at the Cylon. He gave me these cool pins. He's such a nice guy. Every time I meet him, he brings me a gift. I bring him a gift sometimes. I was empty-handed today. Man, and he bought lunch too. So thank you, Curtis. I thanked you on the spot, and he didn't have to do that, but he did. I bought lunch last time, so I'm up the next time we have lunch at China Moon. To be fair, it sounded like I was bashing Chinese food earlier. I was just kidding. I don't think that urine and bugs are the secret ingredient in Chinese food, but you never know. I'm kidding. Oh, look at this one. There's Khan. I hope viewers can see this. But anyway, he gave me all these pins, and I really appreciate that. We'll talk about his show in just a second, but I really enjoyed what we had to discuss. He's got some incredible guests. He's producing a show on Monday. I won't reveal who it is out of respect to him, but I'm super excited about his guest, and he's a great ally to the nostalgic Podblast. Earlier, I showed this. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, a.k.a. Cassandra Peterson, appeared twice on Fall Guy in 2 episodes, one in Season 4 and another one in Season 5. The Season 4 episode actually aired on Halloween night, 1984. Now, there's a big YouTube channel out of Chicago, the Chicago Museum of Video and TV History, and they generally upload original broadcasts of television shows from the 70s, 80s, and even 60s with the original commercials. And they recently, this week, as we're live, uploaded the first episode that Elvira did of Fall Guy. The funny thing about that was, unlike in this TV Guide ad, in the actual show, they put a cloth piece over her cleavage in the show. The ABC censors, I guess, were afraid, they were chicken, that they might offend someone or get someone too excited. I don't know. And so in the actual show, there's a cloth piece over that. But when she came back, I don't think they used that in Season 5, titled October the 32nd, which did not air on Halloween night. ABC screwed up the order. They aired it in December, but it was intended to air around Halloween, as the first one had done, October the 31st. And it's a pretty good little family-friendly Halloween episode. So thanks, Curtis, for that. Now let's talk about some Facebook groups that pertain to nostalgia that I recommend really quickly as we wrap the show. Please look up the fun world of classic television, 1946 to 1982. Steve Russo is a gentleman who runs that group, and he's a big ally to the Podblast. Look up Nostalgia World, too. Jerry Dobson. That's Jerry with a G. Gerry. That's his nostalgia Facebook group. Recommend that one. That's new to my list, and it will remain on my list. He's an awesome ally to the Nostalgic Podblast. And then Curtis's show. Go to retrozest.com for all things nostalgia. And his show, I air it on Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta, and I call it there the Retrozest Show. But it's really the Retrozest Podcast, and he has excellent contests, excellent content, guests, and fun. And he also has merchandise. He has t-shirts and pins, as you saw, like he gave me. It's all on retrozest.com. And if you click Retrozest Podcast on the tab, you can see where his latest show is, or just go to his Facebook page, which has over 35,000 members, followers. Just go to Retrozest on Facebook or retrozest.com. And also, I want to recommend our guest Media Path podcast, hosted by Fritz Coleman and Louise Palanker. Thank you for that. Geek to Me Radio, a radio show out of St. Louis. Let's talk about some radio shows. It's a 1-hour show Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 o'clock Central, and 10 p.m. Eastern Atlanta time, which is where I am. He's in St. Louis, Missouri. James Enstall brings you movie reviews, guests, all things geek and things that aren't so geeky, but it's always informative, and it's only 1 hour of your time. So you can go there to KTRS Radio, or he streams most Sundays on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook in his Facebook group, Geek to Me Radio. I want to recommend BK on the Air, Saturdays 10 a.m. to noon on WBHF out of Cartersville, Georgia. They don't do video, but it's still a good listen worth your time. Every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern time. Thrash Pondo is a YouTuber. Let's talk about a few YouTubers. Thrash Pondo is on Sunday and Monday evenings with a trivia game, and it's really a bonding nostalgia experience where he's really good with his interacting with his followers and trivia games and things. I want to recommend Open by Chance Toys on YouTube. They do excellent content, pre-recorded. They go to conventions, whether you're into comic books or record albums or toys. They go to most shows in the state of Georgia and sometimes across the Southeast, and they shoot a video while they're there. And then when they come back home, they go over the items that they purchased or traded for at those shows. Husband and wife team, and they're really entertaining. And sometimes they go live and just shoot the breeze with their followers, as I do on my YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast. Got to recommend our friends at the Superman homepage. If you're into Superman, all things Superman, like Jerry Seinfeld is. Jerry Seinfeld is a huge Superman fan. They're live Monday night, kind of late if you're on the East Coast, at 10:30 Monday night for just 1 hour, from 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Pacific time. And it's an awesome show. A lot of video, a lot of trivia, a lot of fun, comic books. And they give you the latest news on new projects of Superman, as well as the classic ones like the Christopher Reeve movies or the Fleischer cartoons or the George Reeves Adventures of Superman television show, or the brand new shows on the CW network, et cetera, et cetera. Steve Eunice out of Australia started Superman homepage decades ago. It's a massive website. And Michael Bailey's his co-host right here in the state of Georgia, where I am. I watch it each and every week faithfully. Superman homepage live on YouTube and on Facebook. A new person I follow, Katie is her name, out of Michigan. K-Pop Junkie is her YouTube channel, and she hosts creative guests, a lot of artists, working paid comic book artists. That's her game. And her YouTube channel is spelled K, like the letter K, pop _ junkie, Junki, K-pop _ junkie. And she's live, I think, tonight. And I was on her show on camera with some others last night live in the wee hours of the morning. And then, if you haven't already, check out a massive YouTube nostalgia channel, Dave Sundstrom. He's a new friend to the Podblast. We've been communicating with each other, and he does trivia games. He gives away prizes, though, sometimes. It's a very family-friendly, PG-rated show. I know sometimes I go off the rails a little bit, not too far off the rails, but I do. But he's always rated PG. Family-friendly content, not mandated by the FCC, so he doesn't have to be like a romper room show, but he keeps it friendly and informative. He has a lot of good trivia games, as I mentioned, and great video pieces, great vintage video of like the old Nick at Night promotional commercials and nostalgic things like that. He does a fantastic job, and he has subscribers galore. And he has actual people that subscribe and pay for a monthly subscription for exclusive perks. But Dave Sundstrom is his name. He's out of Utah, the state of Utah, and he just does excellent video. I still love the video piece he did on Topps and Flair TV and movie cards, like this Star Wars sticker I have in my hand of Chewbacca from 1977 from Topps as an example. They're just like football and baseball cards for sports nuts, but they're about movies and TV shows when we were kids. Before Pokemon, my nephew is really into Pokemon. There I go talking about my family. Nobody cares about you or your family, Chance. Note to self. Oh, and of course, Golden Age of TV, Pat McCormack. He had Loretta Swit from MASH on his show for a second time recently. who's just a great guest. And of course, she was Hot Lips in the TV version. Sally Kelman played Hot Lips in the MASH movie from 1970. But everyone knows this. Loretta Swit has done a lot after MASH ended, not in the acting realm, but in terms of charity, art, and she tells Pat all about it. Pat McCormack, he's out of the state of California, golden age of TV. He has a lot of great classic TV guests. He had the actress who played Sissy in Family Affair on several times, and a lot of others. Butch Patrick, who of course is from the Munsters. Everybody knows that, I know. But remember, I've got to talk about my dear friend Shanna and show you her picture real quick, who passed away. I won't be too long about this, but I've got to mention my dear friend Shanna. I know her as Shanna Lee. That's what I called her. That was like her maiden name. She was a next door neighbor when I was a teenager, a couple houses down on a street called Thor's Rock. I lived on the corner of Odin's Way and Thor's Rock. And our family built that house. Obviously, the developer was a fan of Norse mythology and the thunder god Thor, because he named all these streets after that mythology, hence Thor's Rock and Odin's Way. And again, I was never romantic with her, never wanted to be, which is weird because she was attractive. She was a model. And I don't know why. I just always thought of her like a sister. And I have a very sweet younger sister, by the way, named Nicole. But Shanna Lee was a photographer. She worked with CNN. Let me read from her, really briefly, her self-bio that was on LinkedIn. This is from Shanna Lee. Currently, I am a creative client manager responsible for photography, business initiatives, and brand execution for the internal agency at Cisco. The Hatch, quote unquote. Previous to Cisco, I served as creative client manager for the Alderman Company, supporting the creative services team at the Home Depot. For 14 years, I served as a photo editor and account director within the creative services team at Turner, Ted Turner's company, now Warner Media / Discovery, where I managed hundreds of projects for CNN, Headline News, the Atlanta Braves, PGA Tour Golf, TNT, NBA, and the NBA on TNT, and Turner South. In my role at Turner, I provided visual content creation, direction, account management for CNN and HLN, used for all levels of promotion, advertising, digital platforms, and on-air programming. I served as a senior editor on the CNN digital photo team, supporting editorial and social initiatives from 2017 to 2018. In this role, I partnered closely on large-scale digital initiatives with the CNN travel team, countless breaking news events, the solar eclipse, CNN marketing projects such as Bourdain Parts Unknown, CNN Heroes. She was really involved with CNN Heroes, and various political news events. She covered the Democratic and Republican national conventions and other events. Possessing a total of 30 years of experience in the communication arts industry, I have been privileged to work on some of the most important journalistic endeavors of our time. She really made a difference, Shanna Lee, as I know her. In the late 1990s, I worked in the fashion photography industry as a photographer, editor, and first assistant to a celebrity photographer. From 2000 to 2004, I worked in New York for Corbis, Gamma, and various other publications where I served as a photo editor, photo preservationalist, and art buyer, specializing in vendor management and research and licensing. My contributions to CNN were recognized by Communication Arts, where I served as a judge for their 2012 photography competition, as well as recognition in connection with 5 Peabody Awards for my contributions to CNN. Jeez. Specialties: client relationships and account management, creative direction, photographic storytelling, and brand ambassador. God, she was a really sweet lady. I'm going to show you her pretty face. This is from the program at her services that I attended last Tuesday in October 2023 towards the end. And we went to private events. I went to private events with some of her fellow artists. I'll always cherish that. There's a wonderful obituary. Here's a picture of her. Oh, it just makes me so sad. I've been crying, folks. I've been really upset. This is the first time I felt quote unquote normal since this news broke. I'll just tell you, she passed away in her hot tub. It was an accident at her house. Certainly no drugs. She leaves behind 2 wonderful teenage sons and a husband, a grieving husband. I'm going to read an obituary. Our beautiful daughter, Shanna Travis Darnell, was born at Northside Hospital on February 5th, 1972, to proud parents Nancy and Sheridan Lee. Early in her life, she showed talent and interest in art, and especially photography. Her talented father taught her to use professional cameras at a very young age. She attended Fulton County schools and graduated from Walton High School. She went to Riverwood High School, too, in Fulton County. Upon graduation from high school, she attended Atlanta College of Art and graduated from that college. She excelled in photography and later worked for companies such as Turner and CNN. She also lived in New York and worked for a New York magazine. Shanna did some fashion modeling for a magazine in Paris, France. She had a keen sense of design. Shanna had a love for music. Let me see if I can put her image up. She sure did. She turned me on to Duran Duran. I know a lot of people don't like their music. I did. Let me see if that's on camera. Yeah. Beautiful lady. Beautiful friend. And I'll just say this, that was standing room only at the service in Roswell, Georgia. Luckily, I got a seat with some friends, thanks to my friend Joe Bartlett and Melissa. I'll just mention those names. And others. I saw Susie Heron there. We embraced. It just was, it's horrible when you lose a friend. I know a lot of people can relate to this. I'm not trying to be contradictory of what I said, nobody cares, but I know you care about losing a friend. This was completely unexpected, no disease. She was, I'll just say this, I don't think anyone will get offended by me saying this, it's public record now. She was in a hot tub at her house with some girlfriends. Her husband was out of town in Helen, Georgia, and they were having a little wine. And, you know, the combination of heat and wine can really do damage to your blood vessels. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know anymore. It's really none of my business, except she was a very dear friend. And we just texted each other on October 10th. She passed away on, of all days, Friday the 13th, 2023, in that hot tub. She passed out and drowned. It's just awful. Man, I hate to end the show on a down note, but this is important to me. I want this to be on my show. My deep admiration for this woman. And she was always so supportive when I was doing acting jobs and doing conventions, signing autographs just as a lowly walker on The Walking Dead, one of several featured in Tennessee. A really nice man put me up in a hotel and had me sign things. It was like 10 years ago or so, maybe 10, 12 years ago. Really nice guy. Mark Ballard's his name. He's a promoter. And I got to appear at Dragon Con and other things. And anyway, she was just really, really sweet and very supportive about that, even though it was really nothing compared to her very real accomplishments in her life. She was just very, very sweet. And we went to a comedy show in 2019, her husband and I, Jim Gossett, a comedian. This was at Houck's Grill near their home in Roswell. And one thing I regret is she invited me over after the show, and I said, nah, I better get on home. I wish I'd come over that night. Just to meet her sons. I met them, unfortunately, at the funeral for the first time, which was a terrible way to meet those kids. Just horrible. Shanna had a love for music, especially 80s music and especially Duran Duran. Wherever she went, she made friends. That's absolutely true. And had a great understanding and love for people. She lit up the room and everyone gravitated to her. In 2006, she married Brandon Darnell, son of Karen and Philip Darnell. She and Brandon have 2 sons, Trevor, 16, and Grant, 14. Gosh, man. She has been a wonderful mother and wife. She has always put others first. She would do anything for her boys and help Trevor with Boy Scouts and chorus, and Grant with swimming and other sports. Shanna is preceded in death by her maternal grandparents, Travis and Theodore Smith, her paternal grandparents, Oline and Ralph Lee, her father, Sheridan Lee, her uncle, Tim Lee, father-in-law, Philip Darnell. two very close family friends. Jim Bowers and Len Phillips. Those were close family friends that passed away. Shanna was survived by her mother, Nancy Lee, brother-in-law, Greg Darnell, aunt and uncle of Brandon's, Angie and Alan Darnell, aunt and uncle, Barbara and Ted Smith, Nancy Lee's sister-in-law and brother, whom I met at the service, Uncle Ted. He's an architect, retired architect. This is hard. Diana Lee, cousin, David Lee Blaylock, longtime family friends, Barbara Phillips and Diane Depter. We honor her at a funeral visitation, 11 a.m. to 12:30, and a special service at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. These services will be at Northside Chapel, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say the address, but you could probably look it up, but why would you want to? Interment will be at Green Lawn Cemetery on Mansell Road in Roswell, Georgia, and I will visit you, Shanna, often and bring flowers. In lieu of flowers, please make a donation to the GoFundMe honoring our loving and caring Shanna Travis Darnell. May the beauty of Shanna burn brightly forever and light up people's hearts. Amen. Just a tough loss. We're a nostalgia show, but I wanted to end on that note. I want you to love your family members, hug them tight, kiss them good night, and just be good to each other. This is Chance Bartels, the Nostalgic Podblast, saying, I loved you, Shanna. You were a great friend, and I'll never forget you.